Chapter 2360. Lu Jingtian heaved a sigh of relief and calmed down. Sulfuric acid. Yun Na laughed. If you ask me, even if I splash 10 bottles of sulfuric acid on you, it won't be enough to vent the anger in my heart. You. Calm down, Lu Jingtian tried to comfort her, but she did not know if she was comforting the person in front of her or herself. She naively thought that since the other party had found her, there should be room for negotiation. Since she could calmly sit in front of her and expose her identity, she probably would not do anything risky. Besides, although she was in a private room on the second floor and there was no one else around, it was still a public place. With so many people downstairs, she would definitely not do anything rash. Lu Jingtian suppressed her anger and asked humbly, "What do I have to do for you to forgive me?" "Forgive you?" Yun Na pondered for a moment before suddenly taking out a pack of cigarettes. She took one out and put it in her mouth. Then, she casually picked up a Zippo windproof lighter and lit it. "Let me think about it." Lu Jingtian looked at her in trepidation. She looked at the cigarette in the other's mouth, which was flickering, and then at the lighter in her hand. She was wearing a pair of black gloves, which could vaguely be seen on her wrist, covering a long scar. It seemed to be cut by a metal hook, which was why she was using the gloves to cover it. The flame of the lighter flickered and swayed, just like her flustered heartbeat at this moment. "Why don't?" Yun Na suddenly approached her and smiled sinisterly. "How about using your face to exchange for it?" What do you mean?" Lu Jingtian's eyes widened as she asked nervously. Yun Na stood up and pretended to leave as she played with the lighter. Her gaze followed the other's movements as her heart beat like thunder. Yun Na took a deep puff of her cigarette and suddenly stopped playing with it. She lowered her head and looked at her coldly. "Lu Jingtian, from tonight onward, our grudges are settled." Just as Lu Jingtian was feeling perplexed by her nonsensical words, she saw that the other had already turned around and was about to leave. Just as she was about to calm down, she saw Yun Na make a move. The lighter in her hand flew toward her in a strange parabola. "I'm returning it to you." She threw out these words and left. Lu Jingtian yelped in shock. She subconsciously reached out to catch the lighter, but the moment she did so, she retracted her hand from the heat of the flame. The lighter landed on her body. When the open flame came into contact with her body, which was drenched in an unknown liquid, it ignited unstoppably and engulfed her in raging flames. Ah! Ah! By the time Lu Jingtian came to her senses, she had already sprung up from her seat and flailed her arms about. Little did she know that the more she flailed, the bigger the fire became. The pain of the raging fire burning his flesh gnawed at his heart. "Help! Help! 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 Ah! Ah! Ah!" Yun Na ignored the burning man behind her. She put on her hat, stuffed her hands into her pockets, and walked down the stairs leisurely. Without looking back, she disappeared through the door. At this moment, loud and noisy music suddenly came from downstairs. Chapter 2361. The people on the dance floor were waving their hands and twisting their bodies to the music. The DJ, with his headphones on, hit the disc, and the high music pushed the atmosphere in the bar to its climax. "Help! Ah! Ah! It's so hot. It's so hot. It's so hot." She struggled frantically, but no matter how she screamed for help, it was all in vain. Her cries were drowned out by the crowd's clamor. Her heart was shrouded in fear and despair. She rolled on the spot for a while, but she still could not put out the fire on her body. The fire burned her clothes and skin all over her body. The smell of burnt skin assailed her nostrils. "Don't, who's going to save me?" Lu Jingtian cried and screamed as she rolled back and forth. In the end, she accidentally rolled down the stairs. Rumble, the strange sound quickly attracted some people's attention. Some people were sitting closer to the stairs, so they quickly noticed the strange movement coming from the stairs. When they looked over, they were immediately shocked by the shocking scene. Fire! Fire! At first, they could not see clearly what the fire was. They only knew that it was on fire, but when someone took a closer look, he exclaimed, "There's someone inside." "Ah! I saw it, too, she's on fire. Someone, come quickly. Get some water." At this point, Lu Jingtian was engulfed by the fire. Like a ball of fire, she rolled down the stairs and knocked her head on the steps. She fainted for a moment, but the pain of being burned by the fire soon woke her up and she howled wantonly in despair. "Save! Save me! Save me!" No one responded. The atmosphere in the bar was at its climax. A small number of people were alarmed, but it did not attract much attention. A man cried for help for a long time, but no one responded. Most people were numbed by the alcohol and the loud music, so they did not hear his voice, which was drowned out by the rhythm and drums. It was only when the fire grew bigger and bigger that the wooden walls were ablaze and smoke spread that more and more people noticed this scene. "It's on fire! It's on fire! Run!" The DJ, who was standing on the stage, saw this scene. He immediately cut to the music, put on his headset, and called the bar's manager. The manager hurried over and immediately tried to calm down to evacuate the crowd. Some customers, who were still sober, were frightened by the fire and ran for the door in panic. For a moment, the scene was in chaos. The crowd swarmed to the door like a swarm of bees, like an ebbing tide. 10 minutes later, the manager came with a foam fire extinguisher and walked to the fire. The fire extinguisher had been in disrepair for a long time, and the bolt was rusty, so the manager could not pull it off. "Quick! Quick! Call the police! Call the ambulance!" 10 minutes later, the police drove over. At this moment, the fire had been extinguished and the crowd had been evacuated. The huge bar was empty. All the staff stood 3 meters away from the scene, looking at the corner of the stairs, a group of charred people. No one dared to approach. Chapter 2362. The manager of the bar immediately said, "Yes, yes. They're not there yet. They're not there yet. At this time, the road at the entrance should be blocked. What's going on?" The manager of the bar was also at a loss. He said helplessly, "I don't know. I'm also confused now. I heard from the staff that someone was on fire. I immediately evacuated the crowd and organized the staff to put out the fire, but the fire was very big. They only put it out 5 minutes ago, and the person is unconscious. We didn't dare to go near her. No one touched her." The police frowned, feeling that the situation was very strange. He took a look at the victim's condition. Her entire body was charred black. It was a shocking sight. How big was the fire to be able to burn her to such a state? Soon, the ambulance rushed over and hurriedly carried her to the burn hospital. Yun Shishir was on night watch at the hospital. She sat in the corridor and quietly read the script that Qin Zhou had sent over. This script was a new drama that Qin Zhou had accepted for her. It was an urban idol drama that was adapted from a best-selling novel. This time, she was directly chosen as the female lead by the director and investors and landed in the cast. The producer, Fang Jing, had taken a fancy to her current popularity. In addition, her temperament and appearance were compatible with the female lead. Hence, he had directly decided to cast her. Before this, the producer and Qin Zhou had discussed and agreed on the remuneration. Then, Qin Zhou directly sent the script over. Yun Shishir knew that such an opportunity did not come easily. She had just debuted and did not have many works. However, with The Green Apple, she became famous overnight. The movie became a dark horse among the many movies that were released during the Lunar New Year. She was proud of herself and unexpectedly won the box office crown. Other than the box office appeal of Lin Fengtian and Gu Xingze, as the female lead, Yun Sheshe's superb acting skills could not go unnoticed. Her innocent appearance and exciting performance were remarkable. It had attracted her a lot of popularity and many die-hard fans. This was not the only reason why she was directly chosen this time. The current entertainment industry had a bad atmosphere. Many television dramas were crudely made and the so-called sky-high investments were actually made. Most of the money went into the pockets of the lead actors. In order to earn more money, some female celebrities had to deal with several production teams at the same time. As a result, the results of the filming were inferior. There was even a period drama that had special effects throughout the entire process. Other than a few positive scenes, most of the scenes were done by stunt doubles. With The Green Apple, Yun Sheshe shot to fame overnight. At the same time, her professionalism won her over in the industry. In addition, Huan Yu had spent a lot of resources on her. She made a stunning appearance at the Fashion Week and won so many awards at the film festival that her hands went limp. She became a popular starlet and a popular idol. Qin Zhou's pay was 500,000 per episode. Compared to Yang Mi's 1 million per episode and Lin Ji's 800,000 per episode, this was a fair price. Although Yun Sheshe only had one movie released, the investors also took a fancy to her role in Lethal Beauty, which was about to be broadcasted. It was bound to bring her popularity to another level, and her potential was limitless. It was said that Qin Zhou had also heard a rumor. Initially, Lin Ji had taken a liking to this movie. She was willing to lower her salary and even use a lot of methods to snatch the role from her. Even after using a lot of connections, she still couldn't get the female lead role. Chapter 2363. The director insisted that the female lead role must be played by Yun Sheshe. Because of this, Lin Ji was very unhappy. However, on second thought, the scenes of Lethal Beauty had already been completed and it was in post-production. Because it was a long-running drama, they decided to broadcast it while it was being produced. The weekly drama won the golden egg of a first-tier satellite channel. 3 episodes were broadcast consecutively every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Lin Ji thought to herself that Yun Sheshe's popularity might not rise even if she played the evil female lead role in the drama. On the other hand, she might be able to reach a higher level with Lethal Beauty. When that time came, she would not have to worry about not getting good scripts. Yun Sheshe read the script and heard from Qin Zhou that the male lead was in contact with Gu Xingze. The supporting male lead was tailor-made for Hua Jin, so he had already been confirmed. Gu Xingze. He had been banned for a while. Apparently, Huan Yu had lifted the ban. When Yun Sheshe heard the news, she felt very conflicted. When she thought about how Gu Xingze would have to act with him in the same scene, she could not help but feel awkward. Qin Zhou said that the reason why the investors chose Gu Xingze was because of the popularity of The Lucky Couple on Weibo. Many movie fans had been poisoned by The Green Apple and were hoping that the golden couple would work together again. Lin Ji and Gu Xingze had formed an imaginary couple called The Love Diary. Although they had only recorded a few episodes, many fans supported them online. However, because of the ban, the show did not continue. After that, the other imaginary couples were mediocre. Movie fans strongly hoped that the lucky couple would appear on screen again. After the ban was lifted, the production team contacted Yun Sheshe and said that they wanted to continue recording the show. However, Yun Sheshe politely declined. Therefore, the investors had their eyes on the potential market of the lucky couple and were now negotiating with Gu Xingze. The influence of The Green Apple was not to be underestimated. Although the movie had already been taken offline, its popularity was still there. This gave Lin Fengtian a big surprise. After intense voting online, Yun Sheshe and Gu Xingze became the hottest on-screen couple. Yun Sheshe focused on the script, tucking her bangs behind her ears from time to time. Sure. When Yun Sure heard someone call her name, she looked up in confusion and saw Ji Lin looking at her in surprise from the end of the corridor. Director Ji. Yun Sure, who was in the man's eyes, was surprised. Ji Lin smiled. It's so late and you're still in the hospital? Keeping vigil for Dad. She nodded and asked, why are you here? Something happened to one of my artists, so I'm here to deal with it. What happened? Ji Lin paused for a moment before shaking his head. I received a call saying that Lu Jingtian was injured in a fire, so I rushed over. She's still in the operating room now, and her condition isn't optimistic. Burned by fire. Yun Sure furrowed her brows in surprise. How did this happen? Did something happen? Ji Lin shook his head, looking equally confused. I was resting at home when the police called and told me to inform Jingtian's family that she's in the hospital with burns. I'll have to go to the police station later to find out what happened. Chapter 2364. It was too strange. It did not seem to be a peaceful year recently. First, her father was splashed with sulfuric acid, followed by Lu Jingtian being burned and sent to the emergency room. It was really unbelievable. After exchanging some pleasantries, Ji Lin left in a hurry. Yun Sure sat on the bench, no longer in the mood to read the script. She stood at the door of the ward and stared blankly at Yun Yecheng, who was lying on the bed, with furrowed brows. Gong Jia quickly rushed over. According to their agreement, he would take over at 1 in the morning. Yun Sure would go back to rest and take over at 9 in the morning. Someone would take care of her during the day, so she did not have to worry. At 1:00, Gong Jia rushed over with supper for her and reminded her to go back and rest early. Yun Sure nodded stiffly. Just as she was about to leave, Gong Jia pulled her back. Wait. HM. Yun Sure turned around, looking confused. What's wrong? Gong Jia was worried. You look absent-minded today. Is there something on your mind? Yun Sure was stunned for a moment before replying, nothing. I just accepted a script and am immersed in the plot. Gong Jia smiled. You're so dedicated to your work. Not at all. He walked up to her and planted a kiss on her forehead. Good-night kiss. He only had this opportunity because Mu Yaja was not around. It was really not easy. Yun Sure smiled. Gong Jia reminded her again. It's already so late. Put the script aside and go back to sleep early, okay? Okay. I know. Thank you for your hard work. It's not hard at all to serve my sister. Yun Sure smiled and then turned to leave the floor where Yun Yecheng was. She did not return to the hotel to rest immediately, though. Instead, she went to the emergency room. Lu Jingtian's family members had already rushed over on the bench outside the emergency room. 7 to 8 of them sat there with heavy expressions. A middle-aged man impatiently paced back and forth outside the ward, looking extremely anxious. Judging from his flustered expression, he must be Lu Jingtian's father. What the hell is going on? Tian. How did she get burned out of nowhere? The 2 young girls beside her hurriedly comforted her. Auntie, don't worry. Jingtian will be fine. Heaven helps the worthy. God will definitely bless her. Tian called me and told me that she wanted to have a drink with you guys. Were you there when it happened? No, another woman said. When we arrived, the bar had already been cleared. There were people guarding the door, so we couldn't get in. We thought that something had happened. Just as we were about to leave, we saw the ambulance and found out what had happened. We saw a charred person being carried out of the bar, but we didn't recognize that it was Tian. It was only when no one picked up the phone that I heard from the bar's employees that the person who was burned was a TV star that I realized it. I chased after the ambulance and rushed to the hospital. The person was already in the emergency room. The strangest thing is that there was no fire in the bar. I heard that when Tian was found, her body was on fire, but there was no fire anywhere else. I don't know why. Lu Jingtian's mother was even more heartbroken when she heard this. Chapter 2365. Even if she's saved, what can we do? How is Tian going to face the fire in the future? Tian loves to look pretty. If she's disfigured, I can't imagine it. Lu Jingtian's mother was deeply worried. Her eyes were red and swollen. It was obvious that she had been crying. Plastic surgery is so advanced nowadays. Even if she's disfigured, she can still undergo skin grafting. I heard from the doctor that Tian's body was badly burnt, so she definitely won't be able to keep her looks. I'm just worried that there won't be a single unscathed spot on her body. Yun Shishir furrowed her brows. Just as she was in a daze, she vaguely noticed a flash of light outside the window. She walked to the window and looked downstairs, only to find a swarm of media reporters squatting at the hospital entrance with their cameras raised. They were trying to break through the security and sneak into the hospital to report first-hand news. Such reporters had a keen sense of smell. When they heard that something had happened to Jing Tian, they swarmed over. How scary! How could these reporters be so indifferent when she was still in the emergency room? Now that the reporters were blocking the entrance, she could not leave rashly. If she was caught by them, she did not know what these unscrupulous media would report with additional details. Yun Shishir returned to the ward. Gong Jia was a little surprised to see her back. Didn't you go back to the hotel? There are reporters outside the hospital. I can't get out for a while. Reporters. Gong Jia frowned. He suddenly stood up and walked to the window to take a look. He was shocked by the terrifying scene at the entrance. Why are there so many reporters? There are probably reporters squatting at the back entrance, too. The entire hospital is surrounded by them now. Gong Jia was puzzled. Where did so many reporters come from? Did something happen? Yun Shishir replied, an artist from our company was burned and is now in the emergency room. I heard that the burn area is very large. Burned by the fire. Gong Jia was not concerned about this matter. He raised his eyebrows and suddenly smiled. It seems that you won't be able to leave tonight. It's good to accompany you. Do you want supper? Gong Jia asked. I bought some supper. I forgot to ask you. Yun Shishir glanced at it. Gong Jia had bought some beef vermicelli soup and fried dumplings. At this time, besides barbecue, there was only these. Alas, when she saw the charred dumplings in the packaging, she was reminded of the tragic scene of Lu Jingtian being burned by the fire. She lost all her appetite and felt nauseous for some reason. I'm not hungry. Not hungry. Gong Jia teased. Could it be that you're not eating because you're trying to lose weight? Yun Shishir made up an excuse and said, I gained 2 pounds during the new year. Of course, I can't eat whatever I want. I thought elder sister had the physique of not getting fat no matter how much she eats. So, you're also afraid of getting fat. I'm not going to mess with you anymore. Yun Shishir sat up on the bench and held the script, but she couldn't read it at all. She was in a daze for a while. Her sixth sense told her that there must be a connection between the two incidents, which seemed unrelated, between Yun Yeqing and Lu Jingtian. However, it was just her sixth sense. She could not find any evidence or clues. It was just her sixth sense. At 3 a.m, Ji Lin returned to the hospital. Lu Jingtian was still in the emergency room. He asked about the situation and went to the floor where Yun Shishir was. When Yun Shishir saw him, she immediately walked over worriedly and asked about the situation. Did you find out anything at the police station? Chapter 2366. The police retrieved the surveillance footage, but there's a blind spot in the private room on the second floor where Jingtian was. At the time of the incident, we could only see her on fire, but we don't know how it happened. However, there's a suspicious person in the surveillance footage. When the fire broke out, that person came down from upstairs and casually left the bar. The police suspect that this incident has something to do with that person, so they're still investigating. How did she catch on fire? After investigating the scene, we came to the conclusion that Jingtian was splashed with flammable liquid, and we also found the remains of a lighter. Ji Lin gave her a rough overview of the situation. After investigating the scene, the police concluded that the fire was not a coincidence based on the fragments of her clothes and the remains of the lighter found at the scene. They found a large amount of ethanol and the remnants of the flammable liquid on the fragments of her clothes. The lighter was a Zippo lighter. An open flame directly ignited the ethanol, and the fire quickly spread throughout her body. Ethanol. Yes. When exposed to an open flame, it will burn rapidly. Coupled with the fact that she was wearing black stockings, the fire spread even faster. Yun Shishir was quite taken aback by this. Isn't this murder? We can't conclude yet, but the suspicion is very high. What about that person? Yun Shishir asked anxiously, did the surveillance footage capture the person's face? Ji Lin shook his head. No. That person was wearing a cap, so we couldn't see anything clearly. He was dressed very plainly and didn't have any distinctive features. If he were thrown into a crowd, he wouldn't attract attention even if he walked right in front of you. Right now, the police can only collect fingerprints from the scene. If we can get any clues from the lighter, we might be able to make some progress. Yun Shishir nodded. What about Lu Jingtian? Is she still in the emergency room? Yes. He paused for a moment before saying, she's still in the emergency room. We don't know if she'll survive. Is it that serious? Yun Shishir was reminded of Yun Yeqing's condition in the emergency room. Every minute and every second was torturous. It's too cruel. If it's really murder, why use such a cruel method? It must be very painful to be burned like that. The doctor said that 85% of Jingtian's body was burned. This is just a preliminary estimate, it could be more. 85%. What did it mean to have such a large area of burns? He had already been burnt to a crisp. Yun Shishir shuddered at the thought of the cruel acts of the murderer. Ji Lin said, when I came in, I saw a lot of reporters waiting at the door. I'm afraid you won't be able to leave tonight. Those reporters are always the first to hear the news. The competition in the media industry is fierce now. Coupled with the fact that the market has been declining over the years, for the sake of traffic and click-through rates, those reporters are dying to get first-hand reports. They're not giving up. Ji Lin added, sure, you have to be careful too. The company will also send more people to protect you. I have to rush back to the company right away to hold a meeting. Now that Jingtian is in such a situation, we have to do some public relations as soon as possible. Yes. Be careful on the road. After Ji Lin left, Yun Shishir sat on the bench with a gloomy expression. No one knew what she was thinking. Chapter 2367. After Ji Lin left, Yun Shishir sat on the bench with a gloomy look on her face. No one knew what she was thinking about. Seeing this, Gong Jia quietly picked up a fried dumpling and fed it to her. Yun Shishir was shocked. Suppressing her discomfort, she swallowed the fried dumpling and glared at him. Hey! What are you doing? What are you thinking about? Yun Shishir pursed her lips but did not say anything. Gong Jia rubbed her head. She's just an irrelevant person. There's no need to let your imagination run wild because of her. I just have a bad feeling. Don't let your imagination run wild. Gong Jia pulled her into his arms and patted her shoulder gently. Don't worry. With me around, no one will hurt you. Shao Jie, yes. Do you remember that I mentioned to you that I have an adoptive mother? She and my father have a daughter called Yun Na. I don't really remember her name, but I heard you mention it. After a pause, Gong Jia was a little surprised. Why did you mention her all of a sudden? Last year, she and her adoptive mother went missing. Gong Jia's eyelids twitched violently. Not long ago, Yu mentioned this matter to him as well. That was when Yun Yeqing was first sent to the hospital. Yu had once revealed to him about Li Qin and Yun Na. That little girl also had a gloomy look on her face. The disappearance of these two people was Yu's doing. Although he did not mention how he got rid of the mother and daughter, he only said that he threw them into the sea like trash. The process was very detailed, but he did not know the details. At the end of last year, Li Qin's body was salvaged from the sea by fishermen. Her body had been submerged in the sea for a long time, and fishes had pecked at it. Yu admitted that he felt a strong sense of guilt. Back then, when he gave the order to throw them into the sea, he was in a state of uncontrollable emotions. Therefore, he had already forgotten what kind of demonic barrier he was under at that time, to actually be so ruthless. Now that he thought about it, he couldn't remember what he had said or done. Yu didn't know that at that time, there was another dark personality hidden in his body. It was hatched after a long period of darkness in his childhood. That incident was just a fuse that triggered the darkest side of his personality. What he did was no longer within his control. He didn't know that he had such a cruel and callous side to him. He still had lingering fears. At that time, when he found out from Li Dongqiang about what Yun Na had done to his mommy and how she had persecuted her, Yu was instantly enraged and completely turned evil. However, when he realized that such a terrifying demon was hiding in his body, he could not help but feel uneasy. Uncle, is it possible for a person to escape after being thrown into the sea? Yu had asked. He vaguely suspected that Yun Yeqing's incident had something to do with Yun Na. It was not because there was evidence to go by. It was because of his subconscious sixth sense that Yun Na was not dead. She was still alive in this world, lurking in some dark corner, and taking revenge on them one by one. He did not suspect Yun Na at first. However, that day, when Yu was accompanying Yun Yeqing in the hospital, he actually vaguely dreamed of Yun Na's name when he was unconscious. Nana, don't, stop. Chapter 2368. Yun Yeqing's vocal cords were damaged, so it was difficult for him to make a sound. Perhaps it was because of a nightmare that he kept calling out Yun Na's name in his dreams, but his hoarse voice woke Yun Tianyu up. Other than this possibility, he could not think of anyone who would do such a thing to his father. Hence, Yu had been secretly investigating this matter for the past few days. Mu Yaja also instructed the police to investigate Yun Na's whereabouts as soon as possible. Before this, Yun Na had been registered as a missing person, but once she was listed as a missing person, it proved that the police were helpless and could not find any trace of her. There had been no news of her all this while. News of Lu Jingtian's injury spread like wildfire. More and more media outlets gathered outside the hospital to follow up on the incident. Television stations, the internet, and media outlets were all reporting on the progress of this matter. While Yun Shishir was browsing Weibo, Lu Jingtian's burn had become the top trending topic. However, the hospital was heavily guarded, and Lu Jingtian's father was not someone to be trifled with. With his daughter's safety unknown, how could he allow those hateful media outlets to disturb him? Hence, he hired bodyguards to guard the entrance. Not even a fly or a mosquito could enter, let alone a living person. Many media outlets' methods were impossible to guard against. Some even disguised themselves as patients or family members to sneak into the hospital. He also sent people to set up a perimeter a few meters away from the operating room to prevent anyone from getting close. Huan Yu's artist, Lu Jingtian, accidentally set herself on fire on the night of February 16, causing 85% of her body to be burned. She is still in the emergency room and is still in critical condition. According to the doctor, her vocal cords are severely damaged and she can't speak. There's a possibility that she might lose her voice. On the night of the incident, the scene captured by the bar surveillance cameras has already spread on various major websites and entered everyone's sight. It's been 3 hours since the incident, and Lu Jingtian is still in the emergency room. There are endless discussions about this accident, and all kinds of speculations are coming one after another. Some netizens suspect that there are many suspicious points in this matter and that it might not be an accident. Reporters rushed to the bar where the incident happened and interviewed the bar's manager. He said that, according to the surveillance footage, Lu Jingtian came to the bar alone at around 11 p.m. and went straight to the private room on the second floor. As the private room was in a blind spot to the surveillance cameras, it was impossible to know what happened within 20 minutes of the incident. About 15 minutes later, the surveillance footage showed Lu Jingtian rolling and struggling on the floor with her whole body on fire. No one in the bar, though. It was only after 10 minutes of her cries for help were heard that her cries for help, and the fire was finally extinguished by the staff. Yun Shishir kept flipping through the reports until a video popped up. She hesitated for a moment before clicking on the video. In the video, she saw a flash of fire coming from a private room on the second floor. A person covered in flames fell at the staircase, rolling and struggling. At the same time, in the bottom left corner, a man in black casually left the bar. Yun Shishir was taken aback. Chapter 2369. Imagine a normal adult with a person on fire behind him, screaming and struggling for help. In the hall on the first floor, perhaps there were many young people who were immersed in the moving music on the dance floor, forgetting themselves and not noticing the abnormal situation on the second floor. Given how close this person was to Lu Jingtian, it was only natural for him to notice the fire behind him at such a short distance. However, he walked down the stairs calmly and left the bar calmly. It was this extraordinary calmness that made people shudder. This matter, it's related to him. For some reason, this thought popped up in Yun Shishir's mind. This person is too suspicious. The complete CCTV footage was still circulating online. Yun Shishir clicked on it and saw that from the time Lu Jingtian walked into the bar to the time the fire started, only about 20 minutes had elapsed. Although the seat was a blind spot, Yun Shishir clearly noticed that the fire started all of a sudden and did not burn gradually. Ji Lin said that the police found traces of alcohol on the pieces of clothing at the scene. Alcohol? What exactly? This was not an accident. It was premeditated murder. Perhaps it was not murder. The person did not want to kill Lu Jingtian but let her suffer the pain of disfigurement for the rest of her life. Yun Shishir's eyes lit up as she furrowed her brows. In her shock, she could not help but loosen her grip on the phone, causing it to fall to the ground with a thud. By the time she regained her senses, she was already drenched in cold sweat. Yun Yecheng, Lu Jingtian, Yun Yecheng. Her father and Lu Jingtian were attacked one after another in almost the same way. It was definitely not a coincidence that they were attacked in the same way. The method of the crime was similar, and that person did not come with the intention of murder, but cruelly wanted to inflict unbearable pain on them. It had only been a few days since Yun Yecheng was attacked by acid, and Lu Jingtian had also met with an accident. There seemed to be no connection between the two, but she keenly sensed the similarities between them. This person's hatred for the two was monstrous. Yun Shishir immediately recalled the CCTV footage that was released by the media. On the night of Huanyu's annual gala, Yun Na was forced to the corridor by Lu Jingtian. Her face was then slashed with an eyebrow shaver and disfigured. Yun Na must have hated Lu Jingtian to the core. Similarly, Yun Na also harbored hatred toward Yun Yecheng. It's Yun Na. A shocking thought popped up in her mind. Yun Shishir's breathing became uneven as she sucked in a breath. D*****. I should have thought of this. The connection between the two is Yun Na's. Oh, no, flustered, Yun Shishir's phone. 10 seconds later, the call was connected, and Yu Yu's sleepy voice came through. Mommy, she was relieved to hear her son's voice. Yu Yu, are you sleeping? Where's Daddy? He's in the study. Yu Yu asked curiously, Mommy, it's so late. Why are you calling me? Is something the matter? Nothing. I'm just worried about you and Xiaoyi Chen. Is the balcony door locked from the inside when you sleep at night? It's all locked. Then. Chapter 2370. The gas has been turned off, and the door to the back garden has been locked. Mommy, don't worry. Okay, that's good. Yun Shishir finally calmed down. Mommy, are you still in the hospital? Yes. Yu Yu said gently, now that Grandpa's condition has stabilized, Mommy doesn't have to work too hard. Rest early. Okay. After hanging up the phone, Yun Shishir held the phone tightly as her breathing gradually calmed down. Gong Jia walked over and handed a cup of coffee over. Yun Shishir took it, but her gaze was a little absent-minded. Sister, what's wrong? Why do you look uneasy? Yun Shishir said quietly, it hasn't been peaceful recently, and it's making me feel flustered. Gong Jia was silent for a moment. Thinking that it was because she still had lingering fears after seeing the man who had been burned to such a state, he said, in this world, unfortunate things happen every day. Every minute, every second, there are countless accidents happening. Sometimes, life is strong, and sometimes it's fragile. It can't withstand a single blow, and in a short moment, it's gone. And living is not to fear the end of the world, but to welcome tomorrow. In those war-torn areas, the flames of war were incessant, and smoke filled the air. Many refugees lived under the ruins of the bombardment, and it was difficult for them to survive. Especially in African countries. When he was young, he had followed his father's team to Uganda. For more than 20 years, the rebel army of Uganda, the Lord's Resistance Army, had been in constant conflict with the government army in order to overthrow the government. He had watched as a little girl crawled into a pile of corpses to search for food, and finally died in a grenade attack. He had also seen those refugees who had lost their homes shovel the soil on the ground into their mouths. This world was unfair from the moment you opened your eyes. The weak were prey to the strong. Instead of fearing the darkness, it was better to become stronger and more dazzling. Only then could you protect the people you wanted to protect. Shao Jia, it's rare to hear such profound words come out of your mouth. Yun Shishir could not help laughing. Gong Jia muttered unhappily, you're the one who's always treating me like a child. Who asked you to be so mischievous when you were young? You've already left a deep impression on me. The two of them looked at each other and smiled, but each had their own thoughts. Gong Jia knew that Yun Shishir had something on her mind, but she did not mention it to him. This was because, in her eyes, he was still a child. Moreover, she did not understand his identity and background. She did not know that the Gong family was very powerful. The Gong family was cruel, which was why he didn't want to mention the Gong family. Gong Jia silently glanced at Yun Shishir. Seeing that she was troubled, he narrowed his eyes. Sis, you haven't changed at all. Gong Jia leaned back. Do you remember when you were young? You were wronged outside and came back crying. When you reached the door, you wiped away your tears and entered. You never told me what you were wronged or what was on your mind. Yun Shishir pursed her lips. You were so impulsive when you were young. If I told you, wouldn't you beat the child who provoked me until he was crippled? So what? Chapter 2371. Yun Shishir was momentarily at a loss for words. Gong Jia's lips suddenly curled into a smile. You're always keeping your worries to yourself. It makes you feel lonely. With that, he turned his head away and took a sip of his coffee with a deep look in his eyes. Yun Shishir lowered her head in a daze, at a loss for what to do. Early in the morning, Lu Jingtian was still not out of danger. Many media outlets had already published their articles online. Yun Shishir browsed through them one by one. Morning news: Huanyu Entertainment's artist, Lu Jingtian, suffered serious burns in a bar accident. A reporter at the hospital reported that Huanyu's famous actress, Lu Jingtian, suffered burns all over her body in an accident at a bar last night. She was sent to the burn hospital for treatment. According to preliminary reports, her life is still in danger due to the large area and severity of the burns. Qingguang Entertainment, Lu Jingtian's burn area is 85%. Her life is still in danger and she might be disfigured. Currently, the famous actress is still in the intensive care unit. According to the bar manager, Lu Jingtian came to the bar alone and went straight to the second floor. 20 minutes later, she rolled down the stairs, covered in flames, and struggled to call for help. It was reported that she was wearing a chemical fiber outfit at the time of the accident. The fire spread quickly. The bar's emergency response was not timely. By the time the fire was extinguished, she had already lost consciousness. Starlight News: Bar responds to Lu Jingtian's self-immolation incident, denies responsibility, and says that it was because the actress was in a surveillance camera's blind spot. There were no other customers on the second floor at the time, so the fire was not immediately discovered. The bar manager responded that the actress might have been playing with a lighter when the lighter leaked, but the fire spread all over her body in a few seconds. The bar staff put out the fire immediately, evacuated the crowd, and called the police for an ambulance. Huanyu's official Weibo was silent, and there was no announcement so far. Many netizens left comments questioning, can a lighter really set the whole body on fire in an instant? Although her clothes are made of flammable material, it shouldn't spread all over her body in an instant. Shouldn't a normal person put out the fire or call for help in time when their clothes are on fire? However, looking at the surveillance camera, the fire spread all over her body in an instant. She didn't even have a chance to save herself. I don't believe that a lighter can set off such a big fire in an instant. The incident happened a few hours ago, and Huanyu still hasn't made any statement. There's not even an announcement. What are they doing? Unless the clothes were splashed with gasoline or flammable liquid, they would only catch fire when exposed to an open flame. How scary. I heard that Lu Jingtian was badly burned, including her vocal cords. I don't know if she'll be able to speak in the future. At first, I thought it was suicide. But if it was really suicide, who would use such a cruel method? It's not like he's a follower of a cult. Moreover, who would purposely to the bars to commit suicide? I watched the video carefully. There's a person in black in it, but I can't tell if it's a man or a woman. When Lu Jingtian caught fire, he happened to be walking down from the second floor. He looked so calm that it's scary. It's hard not to link him to this incident. Could it be premeditated murder? The netizens discussed animatedly. Chapter 2372. Yun Shishir went back to the hotel to rest. When she woke up in the afternoon, the first thing she did was to grab her phone and open Weibo. Huanyu's official Weibo had already made an announcement. Huanyu Entertainment: to all our fans, we received a very unexpected piece of news last night. Lu Jingtian, the Deerneck, was unfortunately burned in an accident at a bar with a friend last night. She is currently receiving treatment at the burn hospital. When the company received the news, they immediately rushed to the hospital to visit her. Her family members also rushed over. Even now, her life is still in danger and she is still undergoing emergency treatment. We can only pray silently that she can get through this life-threatening situation and recover as soon as possible. Let us pray for her and pray for her speedy recovery. Candle, this Weibo post was posted at 1 p.m. In just 2 hours, it was forwarded more than 100,000 times and left hundreds of thousands of comments. A group of keyboard warriors angrily scolded under the post. As a sign management company, they actually released an announcement 10 hours later than the other news outlets. Isn't their attitude too negligent? They didn't mention the outcome of this incident and just said that it was an accident. Gosh! Is this really just an accident? For such a big company, their PR skills are just passable. They should at least briefly explain what happened, right? This announcement is really baffling. Yun Shishir put down her phone and suddenly made a call to Muyaja. When the call connected, Yun Shishir hurriedly said, "Do you remember that I have a sister called Yun Na?" "Yes. Can you help me check her whereabouts?" "In the basement of the villa." Yun Na entered the room, took off her black clothes, and sat on the bed. She casually picked up the remote control on the bedside table and turned on the TV. The scene changed to the news channel. As expected, Lu Jingtian's accident was the talk of the town. Every TV station was vying to report it. Yun Na leaned against the headboard coldly. How ironic. Yun Yeqing, who had also met with an accident, was still lying in the hospital without the media's attention. As a public figure, Lu Jingtian, on the other hand, had caused quite a stir. Netizens were paying attention to her, and the media's tracking reports were all over the place. She casually picked up an apple, picked up a small knife from the drawer, and casually peeled it. A ghastly scar could be seen at the edge of his sleeve. It was obvious that it had been pierced deeply by some barb. Halfway through peeling, there was a knock on the door. Yun Na glanced at the door. She stood up and walked over to open the door. A woman with heavy makeup stood outside the door. She was wearing a graceful and luxurious coat, and her eyes sized Yun Na up. "Yun Na, you're really cool. You've caused such a big commotion all of a sudden." Yun Na glanced at her, and there was finally a trace of expression on her cold face. With a faint smile, she turned sideways and welcomed her in. She seemed to be quite polite to this woman, but she didn't show much respect. Her attitude was neither cold nor warm. What about women? As if she was used to it, she walked into the room. This was the place that this woman had arranged for her. It was the basement of the villa. It used to be used as a wine cellar to store wine. Now, it was separated by a small room. She had arranged it simply for her to stay. Chapter 2373. The woman was obviously very displeased with Yun Na's actions last night. She closed the door and said coldly, "I saw today's news." Yun Na nodded. "Oh." The woman became angrier at her indifferent response. She sat on the sofa and raised her head to reprimand her. "You're too reckless. Do you know how dangerous it is for you to do this?" The TV behind them was showing Lu Jingtian's tracking report. The scene was switched to the hospital, and a reporter was explaining eloquently. According to reports, the scene of the incident was a mess. The police found traces of alcohol on Lu Jingtian's clothes. The initial suspicion is that the fire was caused by a flammable liquid coming into contact with an open flame. A lighter was found at the scene. The police are trying to get fingerprints from it. The relevant authorities are carrying out further investigation. The woman picked up the remote control and turned off the TV. "Aren't you afraid of arousing her suspicion by being so reckless?" Yun Na raised an eyebrow but did not say anything. "Don't act on your own for the time being. Listen to my arrangements and find the right time to act. I'm worried that she'll be on her guard. If you act on your own at that time, don't be like a lamb in a tiger's den. I still have a use for you. Don't act in a fit of anger." "Got it." The woman suddenly thought of something and ordered, "Let me see your hands." Yun Na did not say anything and stretched out her hands in front of the woman for her to take a look. "Let me see your fingers." Yun Na stretched out her 10 fingers. Out of the 10 fingers on her pair of hands, a part of her right thumb and left index finger had been cut off by a knife. The other fingers seemed to have been scalded by a high temperature and had already healed. However, one could vaguely imagine what kind of painful process she had gone through. As everyone knew, the shape, structure, and details of the fingerprints were very stable. Basically, they would not change for life. If fingerprints were collected at the scene of a crime, it would be a major breakthrough. Unless, of course, the dermis of the fingers were damaged and scarred. In order to prevent future trouble, Yun-Na had destroyed her fingerprints. Later, she could not bear the pain of the knife cutting her fingers. Her remaining fingers were all flattened with a soldering iron. Don't worry, I'll take all the necessary precautions as soon as I leave this door. Even if she destroyed her fingerprints, she would smear her fingers with 502 whenever she went out. They would definitely not leave any traces at the scene. Only then did the woman feel slightly more at ease. Lu Jingtian is currently in the hospital. Her accident has caused quite a stir in the country. During this period of time, don't show your face in public. Just in case, burn the clothes you're wearing. Understood. And, the woman suddenly thought of something and looked at her faintly. Your father seemed to have seen your face and knew it was you. Yun-Na smiled expressionlessly. Yes. As far as I know, he is in the hospital. He has already passed the critical period and his life is saved. Why didn't you kill him? What? Don't tell me that you're soft-hearted and can't bear to do it. No. Yun-Na said fiercely, he deserves to die. Even if he dies 10,000 times, it won't be enough. Chapter 2374. The woman said disapprovingly, Yun Yeqing is a scourge. He's like a ticking time bomb. Something will go wrong sooner or later. You should have done more cleanly back then. I understand what you mean. Humph. But now's not the time. Yun Shishir has people watching over him in the hospital. There's no chance at all. You'll only make a mistake if you act rashly. It's fine. It won't be too late to act after the alert is lifted. Yes. The woman sneered. I won't allow you to make any mistakes. Yun-Na, I'm keeping you because you're still useful. And your greatest value is that no one will realize that you're still alive. From now on, you're not allowed to do what you did yesterday a second time. Last night, Yun-Na acted rashly without any prior notice. She was furious. At this critical juncture, if there was even the slightest mistake, there would be no hope of redemption. Yun-Na nodded. I understand. I'll be careful. Alright, I won't stay any longer. Don't go out for the next few days. If you need anything, just call this number. Someone will send it to you. After saying that, the woman threw a business card on the bedside table, stood up, and left gracefully in her high heels. The door closed again. Yun-Na locked the door and returned to bed. She turned on the television and watched the surveillance footage on the screen. The TV station had deliberately circled the figure in black and analyzed it repeatedly. There were different opinions. She glanced at it and suddenly curled her lips into a cold smile, revealing a row of white teeth. Her smile was sinister and strange. In the past few days, Yun Yeqing's body had gradually recovered. The infection had stabilized, and he had safely passed the critical stage. This week, he would undergo his third skin transplant surgery. Other than preserving his eyelids and eyeballs, some functional skin grafts could at least restore his appearance to a certain extent if the situation was optimistic. He had severe burns all over his body, and his face was disfigured. The hospital could only use skin grafts to transplant the skin from his buttocks to his face for the first stage of cosmetic restoration. Yun Yeqing had been in a coma. He woke up intermittently a few times, but he could not open his mouth or even eat smoothly. He could only rely on nutrient fluids to sustain himself. Yun Shishir was allowed to enter the ward to accompany her. As soon as she stepped into the ward, she saw her father covered in white ointment. His face was pitch black, like a cracked wall. His skin was peeling badly, and he looked terrible. She felt as if a knife was being twisted in her heart. During the night watch, she was reading the script, but she couldn't calm down. Whenever Yun Yecheng was unconscious, he would let out a painful and broken sound from his throat, which was heart-wrenching. However, his vocal cords had been burnt, so he couldn't make any sound other than a faint gasp. The pain of being corroded by sulfuric acid was not something an ordinary person could imagine. Even with a few injections of painkillers, it was difficult for him to sleep soundly. Yun Shishir could only sit by the side, feeling helpless. Living like this was really embarrassing and painful. How could that person be so cruel? There were a few times when Yun Yecheng was in so much pain that he let out sobbing sounds as tears streamed down his face. Yun Shishir could only bear with the pain and quickly wipe his tears away to prevent them from flowing into his wound. She couldn't drink water for the time being, so she could only dip a cotton swab in water and gently apply it to her lips. Chapter 2375. Yun Shishir said, "Uncle, you don't have to come all the time. Your legs aren't good, so you'll only be anxious if you come. I'll take care of Dad. There are also 4 nurses taking turns to look after him during the day, so you don't have to worry." Yun Yeho sighed. "I know that I'm a cripple who can't even move properly, so I'll only be a hindrance if I come, but I'm thinking that I can at least help a little when he wakes up and you're not around." Yun Shishir said helplessly, "What do you mean by a cripple? Uncle, aren't you being too serious?" "That's the truth." Yun Yeho tugged at the corner of his lips, looking somewhat helpless. After a moment of silence, he smiled and said, "The truth is, you don't have to worry about me. After so many years, I'm used to it. I can take care of myself." Yun Shishir did not know what to do with him, so she did not say anything more. In the past few days, the number of media reporters camping outside the hospital had lessened. Compared to the army of reporters who had previously camped outside the hospital's entrance, more than half of those despicable reporters had left when they realized that they could not get any news. The remaining few were still camping outside the hospital's entrance, hoping to get some big news or insider information. Lu Jingtian's life was saved after the emergency treatment. Similar to Yun Yecheng, her vocal cords were severely burnt, so it was likely that she would not be able to speak coherently in the future. Fortunately, at least the patient was saved. During the treatment, there was a shortage of blood bags. Lu Jingtian's blood type was not considered rare, but the blood bank was in a state of emergency. Many enthusiastic netizens rushed to the hospital to donate blood and cheer her on. No matter what, her life was saved. After coming out of the emergency room, Huanyu's official Weibo updated its status to inform the public of Lu Jingtian's current situation. It also expressed some official words, such as thanking the fans for their concern and the kindness from all walks of life. Ever since Huanyu's official Weibo posted this announcement, the other artistes in the company spontaneously reposted it to encourage and cheer her on. Yang Mi, Li Jiuxian, and most of Huanyu's artistes sent their blessings. How many of these blessings came from the bottom of their hearts, though? Most of them were pompous and superficial greetings. The so-called support was mostly insincere. How many of them were sincerely praying for Lu Jingtian? Lu Jingtian was usually vying to stand out in the company, so she was not very popular. Many people were secretly happy when they found out that she was disfigured. This was especially true for a female star who had recently been snatched from the lead role by Lu Jingtian. She was so happy that she did not know what to do. This was retribution from the heavens. Of course, he could only keep these thoughts in his heart. But at this time, who would dare to add insult to injury? This was a critical juncture. Lu Jingtian's burn incident had caused a sensation all over the country. The more they were at this juncture, the more they had to be mindful of their words and actions. There were many keyboard warriors on the internet. If you were not sincere enough, your fans would definitely accuse you of being cold, heartless, or cruel. Yoon Shurshur was innocently implicated. For the past few days, Yoon Shurshur had been taking care of Yoon Yeching at the hospital. She did everything by herself, no matter how big or small, and thus neglected the latest news about Lu Jingtian on Weibo. Many fans saw that the other artists of Hwanyu had posted on Weibo to express their concern, but Yoon Shurshur did not. They started to question her indifference. Chapter 2376. Qin Zhou logged into her Weibo account and posted a post on her behalf to express his concern. However, even though he released it in time, the fans didn't buy it. Lu Jingtian's injury is so serious. The other artistes in the company immediately posted their concern on Weibo. Why did you only post it now? You're too cold. She's your colleague, after all. Isn't it too cold for you to pay attention to this matter so late? Seeing that their idol was being attacked, Yoon Shurshur's die-hard fans immediately retaliated in the comments section of Weibo. Why didn't I realize that she had so many fans in the past? Now that she's in trouble, all of you are pretending to be her fans. Do you think you're the Virgin Mary, standing on the high ground to criticize others? That's right. Why didn't I see you guys as her fans in the past? Now that she's in trouble, you're pretending to be the Virgin Mary. Virgin Mary be asterisk cheese. What makes you think that you have to post on Weibo to express your concern? You're so pretentious and hypocritical. Lu Jingtian isn't the country's leader or director. There are so many innocent and unfortunate people every day. Does Shurshur have to post on Weibo to express her concern for each and every one of them? What a joke. If she has the time to care so much about a celebrity, she might as well put more focus on her parents. Lu Jingtian has so many scandals. Does she think that she can clear her name just because she's injured? Hee. Just as Yoon Shurshur's Weibo was in a heated debate, some observant fans noticed the abnormality in her latest post. Shurshur doesn't usually use this phone, right? Why is it displayed as a VOA client? That's right. Isn't Shurshur using the phone she's endorsing? When one posted a status on Weibo, the phone brand's client would be displayed. As Yoon Shurshur was endorsing a phone brand, according to the advertiser's request, she had to use the brand's latest phone in public places, especially online portals. Some nosy fans followed the clues and found Qin Zhou's Weibo. After comparing the client logo displayed, they immediately said, "This Weibo post isn't posted by Yoon Shurshur herself. I think it's probably her manager who used his own phone to log into her Weibo account and post it." At this moment, the flames of war erupted. Many fans accused Yoon Shurshur of being cold and indifferent. Even when she posted a Weibo status to express her concern for the victim, she asked her manager to do it on her behalf. She had no sincerity at all. When the news spread to Yoon Shurshur, the scolding war on Weibo had escalated like a raging fire. Hardcore fans and anti-fans stood in two rows, arguing on Weibo. Yoon Shurshur felt gloomy. She was confused for a moment. She didn't even know when she had posted that on Weibo. No matter how she thought about it, it might have been sent by Qin Zhou. She immediately called Qin Zhou to verify the situation. Qin Zhou didn't know that because he didn't care about blocking his client's logo, his identity was exposed. Oh no. I did something bad with good intentions. Yoon Shurshur's lips twitched. Boss, if you have any instructions, you can call me. It's just a Weibo post. I still have some free time. Chapter 2377. Qin Zhou pondered for a moment before saying, "No matter what, you'd better explain this on Weibo. Just say that you're taking care of your father in the hospital. Just tell the truth. Otherwise, you'll be the hottest topic on Weibo." Yoon Shurshur broke out in cold sweat. Okay. She went online and posted a long Weibo post to explain the situation. When her die-hard fans learned that her father was hospitalized, they became even angrier. Shusher has been taking care of her seriously injured father in the hospital these few days. You keyboard warriors are too much to attack her indiscriminately. There were also fans of the magical powers who dug up the background of those anti-fans. Yun Shusher was not in the mood to care about the chaos online. For a few days, Yun Shusher and Gong Jia took turns to take care of her father in the hospital. She had to admit that she thought that Gong Jia was a man, after all. It was fine for him to stay overnight, but if he were to take care of an injured person, he would not be attentive enough. However, she was still worried at first and came to the hospital to take a look. When she saw Gong Jia taking care of her father, who was lying on the hospital bed, she was surprised and felt warmth in her heart. He was very attentive to Yun Yeqing and would do everything himself, busying himself with everything. In fact, Gong Jia was an extremely heartless person. He rarely got close to anyone. If not for Yun Shusher, he would not have taken pity on her father even if he was seriously injured and lying in front of him. However, it was precisely because this ordinary man raised his sister single-handedly. The kindness of raising her was as heavy as Mount Tai. Therefore, even if there were inevitably some dirty and tiring work when he took care of her, he still did not complain and was considerate and attentive. Taking care of such a seriously injured person was really not a good job. However, Gong Jia took care of her very carefully and did not complain at all. At the same time, the Mu Group also released an announcement regarding Mu Yaja's resignation as the Mu Group's CEO. Unsurprisingly, the moment the announcement was released, there was an uproar again. Mu Yaja was a cunning old fox. He had clearly stated in the announcement that Mu Yaja had resigned on his own accord and that it had nothing to do with the company's internal affairs. He also made it clear that after Mu Yaja announced his resignation, Mu Corporation tried to persuade him to stay, but he did not cherish the opportunity. However, this announcement letter still caused countless waves of commotion. Everyone in Mu Group was speechless. To Mu Yaja, the position of CEO was dispensable. In his eyes, the position that so many people coveted but couldn't get was worthless in his eyes. He didn't want it at all. The other competitors of the Mu family felt even more indignant. The things that they were fighting for at all costs were not rare in the eyes of others at all. After the announcement was released, it caused a huge uproar. Naturally, Mu Group's shares fell again and again on the same day. They fell to the bottom of the valley. Hundreds of millions of yuan of market value disappeared overnight. Of course, this loss was not a big deal to the Mu family, but it was not a small loss either. It still caused a lot of turmoil in the Mu family. Chapter 2378. Many reporters found out that the second head of the Mu family preferred Mu Yanqing, the illegitimate son of the Mu family. Mu Yanqing. Can he do it? With a pioneer like Mu Yaja in front of him, if he were to rise to the top, would he be able to shine like Mu Yaja? It was impossible. Everyone knew that no one in the Mu family could replace Mu Yaja's position and achievements. After Mu Yaja left the Mu Group, everyone's confidence in the Mu Group was greatly reduced. Just like what Mu Yaja had said, the Mu Group would only become a wasteland without him. In addition to the plunge in the stock market, many investors withdrew their investments. Some of them who had deep ties with the Mu Group chose to withdraw their investments. If this situation continued, the Mu Group would be trampled under his feet sooner or later. Taking advantage of the turbulence in the Mu Group, the Xingyu Financial Group also launched a large-scale offensive, boldly and decisively building momentum. This was where Mu Yaja's shrewdness came into play. The reason why these shareholders and investors withdrew their investments, leaving aside the fertile projects of the Mu Group, was that they no longer had confidence in the Mu Group. Mu Yaja's departure meant that the huge mountain of Mu Group had lost its leader. In this way, in such a cruel market, he would no longer have a leadership position. For so long, he had been biding his time, waiting for the day when the Mu Group released the announcement letter. Many companies chose to withdraw their investments from the Mu Group. Hence, Mu Yaja casually sent Jiang Xin and Lu Jinyu to rope in those shareholders. On the second day after the Mu Group released the announcement letter, the Xingyu Financial Group announced a new round of financing. The legal person of the group was officially changed to Mu Yaja. Thanks to Song Jinghua, with the land and the new city in his hands, the financing went very smoothly. In just a few days, it exceeded his expectations by several times. The financing went very smoothly. Just a week after Mu Corporation issued the announcement letter, Xingyu Financial Group was listed on the New York Stock Exchange and announced its listing. On the day Xingyu Financial Group went public, it was unprecedented. The opening price was $99.32, with a total market value of $452.4 billion. It was much more than expected. Before this, many people had noticed this eye-catching group. In just a few years, it had achieved extraordinary results. After it went public, it quickly took the lead and even surpassed many famous local companies in the United States. After being listed, Mu Yaja's extraordinary effect could be said to be unprecedented. This meant that once Xingyu was listed, he would have a net worth of hundreds of millions. The news quickly spread to the Song family. That night, Song Jinghua came home angrily. He slammed the financial newspaper on the table and scolded, "This kid is really good at scheming. I was wondering why he was able to step down from his position as the CEO of the Mu family so easily back then. He was so confident and disdainful. He didn't even want it anymore." Humph. It turned out that a few years ago, he had secretly planned and cultivated his own forces. Now that Xingyu is listed, its stock price rose to $120 by the end of the day. He's really riding on the crest of success. When Jiang Qiming heard this, she was a little confused and hurriedly asked what was going on. Song Jinghua tugged at his tie in annoyance and paced a few rounds on the spot. He slammed the table, his veins popping out in anger. "He set me up. Damn it." Chapter 2379. Song Jinghua said unhappily, "What else could it be? Your brother is very shrewd. Back when he was still in the Mu family, he relied on the Mu family's resources to cultivate his own company. Even the Mu family didn't know about this. In order to hide it from others, the legal person of Xingyu Financial Group was Lu Jinyu's name from the beginning. A few days ago, he changed the legal person. Last night, he listed it in New York and became hundreds of billions of yuan. Humph. I've really underestimated his capabilities previously. I thought that after he left the Mu family, he would have nothing." Song Anya was watching TV in the living room. When she heard her father's words, she was shocked and her eyelids twitched. "Dad, what did you say? How did the Xingyu Financial Group, which has been very popular recently, become Brother Mu's? Can't you tell? He's been planning for this day for a long time. The second in charge of the Mu family is probably going to be angered to death. They nurtured him wholeheartedly, but in the end, they raised an ingrate. Now that he's gone, not only did he take away a lot of the Mu family's resources, but many shareholders and investors also withdrew their investments from the Mu Group and transferred their investments to the Xingyu Financial Group. In this way, the Mu Group must have suffered a great loss after suffering such a heavy blow." Song Anya's face turned pale as she sorted out the situation. Jiang Qiming said in a daze, "You mean to say that a few years ago, that kid had already started planning something else and established Xingyu? This Xingyu is his doing. What else could it be?" Song Jinghua said unhappily, "I've dealt with Xingyu a few times, but I didn't find anything fishy. I didn't expect that, from the beginning to the end, this kid had everything planned out. Not long ago, he took that piece of land from me and used it to finance his project. Now, he's so proud of himself." Hearing this, Song Anya bit her lip hard as her facial muscles twitched. "Oh my God! What was this? What was this?" Ever since that incident, her love for Mu Yaja was as deep as her hatred. The more she loved him, the more she hated him now. She had thought that after Mu Yaja left the Mu group, he would have nothing left. At first, she was secretly proud. She was counting on the day when she became the young madam of Mu Jia. She must run to Yun Shishir to show off. But what about her? He wanted to see with his own eyes how dejected they were. After leaving the Mu group and losing that position, that arrogant and extraordinary man must have fallen from the peak to the bottomless abyss, right? Chasing after love. Did she disregard fame and fortune for the sake of love? At that time, she would be different. As long as Mu Yenqing acknowledged the child in her womb and married into the Mu family, she would be the Mu family's young mistress. She did not have to worry about Mu Yenqing refusing to acknowledge the child. She had plenty of means to force him to acknowledge it. As for Yun Shishir, she was with a down-and-out man and had nothing. Just thinking about it made her blood boil. What about Mu Yaja? She still wanted to see how he would regret it when he ended up in such a miserable state. He had chosen a B***tch like Yun Shishir. He was even willing to abandon his family and step down as the head of the household for her. She wanted to see how lowly this man, who had always been high-spirited, would be when he lost his power and wealth. She even wanted to see how he would regret it when the time came. Chapter 2380. What about now? Not only was this man not down and out, he was even flushed with success. Even after leaving the Mu group, he was still wealthy and had a lot of money. Song Enya was livid with anger as she threw the pillow on the floor. How could this be? In the end, wasn't she just like a clown being toyed with by him? In the end, wasn't she being treated like a joke by that woman? The more she thought about it, the angrier she became. She stood up and wanted to return to her room, but just as she stood up, she blacked out on the sofa. She did not know if it was due to her emotions or something else. After losing consciousness for a short while, she woke up in her room. Song Jinghua and Jiang Qiming hurriedly sent her to her bedroom when they saw her faint. They were in a hurry to get the family doctor to check on her, but she had already woken up. Seeing that she was awake, Song Jinghua spat, "What's wrong with you again? Why is your body so weak? Why? Did you get agitated after hearing that man's success?" Jiang Qiming immediately retorted, "Our daughter isn't feeling well. Stop talking so much. Do you still want to add fuel to the fire? What kind of tone is that?" "Xinghua," Jiang Qiming said, "leave us alone for a while. I want to have a heart-to-heart talk with our daughter." "Forget it. Do whatever you want. I'm also troubled, so don't bother me." With that, he slammed the door and left. As soon as he left, Song Enya broke down and burst into tears. "Mom! Enya, what's wrong? Mom! Mom! I've become a clown again. This time, they'll only gloat and laugh at me. Whether it's Yun Shishir or Brother Mu, they all treat me like a clown and play me in the palm of their hands. Mom! I worked so hard to marry into the Mu family and did everything I could to open their eyes and see how glorious I am when I become a young mistress. Even without Brother Mu, I can still live well. But now, Brother Mu is flushed with success again. Poor me for being so silly. In the end, I still fell into his trap. How could he do this? Why are you so cruel to me?" The more he thought about it, the more terrifying it was. From the beginning to the end, Mu Yaja, as well as her and Song Jinghua, had calculated everything perfectly. He had long known that she had stolen his sperm. He had long known that she had secretly gone to the United States to arrange for artificial insemination. He had long calculated all of this and used it as leverage to threaten her in disguise. He had snatched the land of the new city from her father's hands, raised funds with great fanfare, and went public. Overnight, he had become a billionaire. She was so pitiful. She was deeply in love and had put in so much effort, but in the end, she was only a stepping stone for him. What was this? Mom. I really can't accept it. I was deeply in love, but I was betrayed. What was so good about that Yun sure that he would do everything to fight for her? And what about me? I actually became a stepping stone for him to step on. He used me to the fullest, but he didn't even look at me. Why? She used to think that she was special. At the very least, he had never given his tenderness to any other woman except for her. But now, she felt that she was a pitiful lunatic from head to toe, a fool. Chapter 2381. For the sake of loving her, she pulled out the thorns on her body one by one until she was covered in bruises. She hoped that one day, she would be able to take back her pride, dignity, and face from Mu Yaja. But now, she was in despair. I'm a fool. A big fool. Song Enya was so agitated that she grabbed the bed sheets and scratched at them. Tears and snot flowed down her cheeks. Jiang Qiming hugged her in her arms with heartache. Song Enya cried bitterly. Mom, I was wrong. I should have listened to you back then and not pestered him. But I have nothing now. My pride, my self-esteem, everything has been ruthlessly trampled on by him. I'm like a hedgehog whose thorns have been pulled out and I'm covered in wounds. In the end, I've become a joke to everyone. Mu Yanqing. Mu Yanqing must hate me. He hates me for being shameless and unscrupulous. He must think that I'm cheap. God knows how he'll look down on me if he finds out how the child in my tummy came about. Then get your pride and self-esteem back. I can't get it back. Song Enya broke down. Look at how smug they are now. What can I do? I should have expected this. I should have expected that a proud man like him would never allow himself to be down and out, not even for a minute. I naively thought that he would be left with nothing after leaving the Mu group. How laughable. He was so proud that he would never allow himself to fall to the bottom. Silly child, it's precisely because of this that you have to work harder to live a better life. Believe me, if you marry into the Mu group and live a glorious life, who will laugh at you? Even if he makes a comeback, so what? Although the Mu group has suffered a great loss, a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. No matter what, Xingyu Financial Group can't compete with the Mu group. The Mu group had been at the top for a long time. It was deeply rooted in the company, and no one could shake their position. If you become the young mistress of the Mu family, others will be envious. Who will look down on you? With tears in her eyes, Song Enya nodded helplessly. I've already laid all my cards on the table with Mu Yanqing that day. He doesn't believe that what happened that day was a coincidence at all. People from the Mu family are indeed not easy to fool. So what if he knows? He has to acknowledge this child whether he wants to or not. As Jiang Qiming said this, the corners of her lips curled up into a cold smile. The Mu family. Your child. Mu Shumin stared at Mu Yanqing, his eyes almost popping out of their sockets. Mu Yanqing. That Song Enya is pregnant with your child. Yes. You. Are you trying to anger me? At this critical juncture, you actually came up with such a trick. Mu Shumin said angrily. She had expected better from him. Of Mu's Mu aunt answers Mu to Mu's child Yun Mu's child of A's, if you didn't touch her, then how did she get pregnant? Mu Shumin did not think much of it. Since she's pregnant with your child, what's there to deny? Chapter 2382. Artificial Insemination. Mu Shumin was shocked. Mu Yanqing nodded, looking a little aggrieved. He did not know whether to laugh or cry as he said, you can ask second uncle about this matter. He has already sent people to investigate the background of the child in Song Enya's stomach. I think we should get an answer soon. Mu Shumin furrowed his brows, looking a little surprised. Why would she do that? Even if she used such a method, she shouldn't have targeted you, right? I heard that this lass has never changed her mind about Yaja. How did it involve you? Mu Yenqing was at a loss about Mu Shumin's doubts. He. I don't know. Who knows what she's thinking? I wasn't wary of her, but I didn't expect her to plot against me. Mu Shumin's interest was piqued as he asked, "Oh. Where did this come from? What the hell is going on?" That day, I met her at a bar. Mu Yenqing gave a concise account of what had happened that night. Mu Shumin's expression changed again and again as he listened. In the end, shock was not enough to describe it. She actually used such a despicable method on you. Ha! That Jiang Qiming is really too much. As a daughter, she's despicable, and as a mother, she's also fooling around. How does the Song family discipline their women? Does Song Jingguan know about this? I'm not sure. Mu Yenqing moved and said, "Anyway, Auntie, you have to believe me. I didn't touch her at all. Although I've had other women outside and played with them, I've always known my limits. I'll never have any thoughts about someone who doesn't change. Song Anya has the Song family behind her. If I were to mess around, wouldn't her mayor father skin me alive?" Mu Shumin was silent for a moment before he muttered, "If that's really what you said, in my opinion, this child can't be kept." What do you mean? If such a scheming woman marries into the Mu family, won't the world be turned upside down? The Mu family is already in a mess. With such a woman, it'll be chaos. No matter what, you have to marry a woman who's easy to control. I'm worried that you won't be able to subdue Song Enya. Mu Yenqing laughed disdainfully. There's no woman that I can't subdue. That's because you haven't fallen for men. He. Don't underestimate women. After a moment of silence, he suddenly thought of something and asked, "Auntie, do you know about Xingyu Financial Group's recent listing in New York?" Chapter 2383. At the thought of this, Mu Shumin was furious. ***, how can we let him have his way? What should we do now, then? Since this battle has already begun, even if we have to bite the bullet and suffer losses on both sides, we should still fight it." After saying that, Mu Shumin slowly stood up and said with a vicious expression, "At the very least, we have to show him that the Mu family isn't so easy to bring down. Xingyu Financial Group alone is far from enough to bring down the Mu family." The two men looked at each other, their eyes filled with viciousness. The next day, Mu Shumin looked for Mu Linfeng and mentioned Song Enya's matter. Mu Linfeng sat at his desk and glanced at her. Suddenly, he said in a deep voice, "I think I know what's going on now. Second brother, don't keep me in suspense. Since you said that you found out, why don't you tell me what's going on?" That last didn't steal Mu Yenqing's sperm from the sperm vault but Mu Yaja's. She ran to America and secretly underwent artificial insemination. In the end, Yaja found out about it and secretly tampered with it, replacing it with Mu Yenqing's. She had painstakingly prepared for pregnancy and suffered a lot. When she finally got pregnant after much difficulty, she was awakened by Yaja's splashing of cold water on her. Not only that, he even used this as a threat to make Song Jingguo obediently hand over the land in Xanqing. Then, he used this land for financing and successfully listed it. From the beginning to the end, everything was in his plan. He calculated step by step, including Song Enya, me, and the entire Mu group. Every step he took was aimed at our vital points. I have to say that this brat was able to calculate to this extent. It's an eye-opener for me. What do we do now? Mu Shumin was angry and anxious. That Song Enya is too shameless. She's trying to frame Yenqing. Is she crazy? Second brother, why don't we secretly get rid of her child? We can't let such a scheming woman marry into our family. What are you going to do? Mu Linfeng asked. Mu Shumin was at a loss for words. You're not going to tell me that you're going to kidnap that girl and forcefully abort the child in her stomach, are you? Can't I? You should know that the Song family is not to be trifled with. However, Mu Shumin disagreed and said contemptuously, do you think our Mu family is afraid of a mere Song family? At this juncture, offending the Song family will not end well for the Mu family. If these words came out of Mu Yaja's mouth, it would be more convincing. After all, I believe that he has the means to settle this matter. But you, forget it. Don't cause any more trouble at this critical juncture. Mu Shumin panicked. Second brother, that lass is so shrewd. What will happen if she marries into the Mu family? That girl won't amount to anything. With you suppressing her, won't she still be under your control? That little scheming of hers won't be enough to turn the Mu family upside down. After weighing the pros and cons, we should go with her wishes. Since she wants to marry into the family, we might as well fulfill her wish. The Mu family can still afford to give her a status. Mu Shumin bit his lip indignantly, feeling indignant. A tiger would be bullied by a dog if it fell to the ground. Chapter 2384. I'll leave this matter to you to handle. Since she's pregnant, we can't afford to take any more responsibility. Besides, marrying Song Enya into the family might not necessarily be a bad thing for the Mu family. That old man of hers has quite a bit of power in his hands. He can help a little at this juncture. Then Yanqing will definitely be wronged. What's there to suffer? Mu Linfeng smiled. He'll only suffer more if he marries Lin Shuya. That last Lin Shuya's temper was even worse. At worst, he could let him marry a few more concubines in the future. It was not impossible. The most important thing now is to settle this matter as soon as possible. Song Enya is doing this because she's sure that Mu Yanqing has no choice but to acknowledge this child. This, Mu Shumin could not calm his anger. After calming himself down, he swallowed his anger and said, all right. When she returned home, even though she was furious, she still made arrangements according to Mu Linfeng's instructions. Mu Yanqing was not surprised when he heard the news, but he still felt uncomfortable. To him, marrying Song Enya was not a loss or grievance. It was just that he felt unbalanced. At the end of the day, he was just a replacement. Song Enya was originally aiming for Mu Yaja, but in the end, he did not care and did not want her. In the end, it fell to him. To put it bluntly, if he was not a spare tire, what was he? Only when Mu Yaja did not want her would it be his turn. He could not get over this hurdle in his heart. However, Mu Linfeng had also said that this marriage should be done as soon as possible. Once Song Enya married into the family, he would do some work to help him ascend to the position. The position of the Mu Group's CEO was still empty. Every day that it was empty was another day of turmoil in the Mu Group. A country could not be without a ruler for a day. If such a large financial group lost its leader, it would be more dangerous. If Song Enya married into the family with the support of the Song family, the Mu family could get through this public relations crisis as soon as possible. Only then did Mu Yanqing feel a little better. At night in the hospital, Yun Shishir stayed in the ward and quietly read the script. When it was early in the morning, she was so sleepy that she fell asleep. She did not know how long she had slept until she was awakened by a soft rustling sound. She opened her eyes warily and sat up abruptly, only to see Mu Yaja sitting by the hospital bed, dabbing some water on her father's lips. She was a little surprised and said softly, "You're back." Mu Yaja turned around. "You're awake?" "Yes." Yun Shishir walked up to him and said, "When did you come back? Why didn't you wake me up?" Some time ago, Mu Yaja flew straight to the United States because of the listing of Xingyu Financial Group. He did not say when he would be back. She did not know much about the listing of Xingyu Financial Group. She only knew that her man had his own assets and company outside of the Mu Group. However, she only had a rough idea and did not know how big his company was or how big it was. Mu Yaja did not mention too much and only told her to take care of Yun Yaja. I rushed over as soon as I got off the plane. When I came in, I saw you dozing off and the script on the floor. I thought that you must be very sleepy, so I didn't wake you up. You should have woken me up. Since you're tired, sleep a little longer. I'll take care of you. Chapter 2385. Yun Shishir also sat down by the bed. He asked, "How's Dad?" The doctor said that his condition has stabilized, but he can't eat or drink for the time being. He's relying on the nutrient solution to maintain his health. Yun Shishir paused. What about the company? Is it going well? Yeah, everything is going well. Mu Yaja reached out and gently tucked her hair behind her ear. Everything is going according to plan. Yun Shishir smiled. She knew that her man was extremely outstanding and would never allow himself to fail. Once he decided to do something, he would definitely do it to the best of his ability. Hence, she was never worried. Mu Yaja's lips curled into a smile as he pulled her into his embrace and gently said, "I told you before that I'll give you the best life." Yun Shishir hugged his waist and said emotionally, "Yeah, I know. Shishir, I've already contacted them. After I'm done with work, I'll take you to try on the wedding dress." Yun Shishir was stunned. Wedding dress? Why? Don't tell me you forgot. Mu Yaja playfully scratched her nose and said, "The wedding dress you wore for the wedding photo shoot." "Ah, I remember now." Yun Shishir smacked her forehead and said, "I've been so busy recently that I almost forgot about it." Mu Yaja rubbed her head lovingly. He liked to rub her little head. It was said that the way a man doted on a woman was not to treat her like a princess, but to dote on her like a daughter. Yun Shishir slapped his hand away. "Hey! You're messing up my hair. I've long lost my image." Humph, Yun Shishir snorted a few times. However, Mu Yaja said, "You sound like a little pig when you snort." Yun Shishir was a little surprised. How could he be like those ordinary couples and use Piggy as a pet name? Many couples would call each other pig babies when they flirted with each other. In her eyes, this man had always been otherworldly. She didn't expect him to have such a down-to-earth side. Yun Shishir snorted in dissatisfaction. "You're the piggy. I'm not going to snort like a piglet. If I'm a pig, then what are you?" "Humph, you're a beast, you won't even let a pig go." Before Yun Shishir could finish her words, Mu Yaja suddenly hugged the back of her neck and heavily sealed her lips. The kiss caught her off guard and blocked her breath. He kissed her gently, but he seemed a little anxious. After the kiss was over, he pressed his forehead against hers and said softly, "Little fool, do you know that I can't wait to see you in your wedding dress in front of me?" Upon hearing this, Yun Shishir's heart skipped a beat. She looked up and met his tender gaze. Her heart actually skipped a beat. "I can't wait to see you in your wedding dress in front of me." He had imagined this scene countless times. He imagined that when she stood in front of him in a holy and beautiful wedding dress, he would definitely feel a burning sensation in his chest that was on the verge of bursting out. "Has the wedding dress been custom-made?" "Yes, I've ordered 3 sets. As for the other gowns, I've also picked out a few designs. When the time comes, I'll bring you to try it on. Do you know? I suddenly feel so nervous." Chapter 2386. Yun Shishir told him the truth. "Those brides in wedding gowns are so beautiful. I don't know what I'll look like in a wedding gown. I'm worried that I won't be beautiful enough." She was shy. She was the same. She had fantasized countless times about standing in front of him in a wedding gown. When that time came, she would be so nervous that she would not know where to put her hands. That feeling was indescribable. When are you going to try on the wedding gown? Muyaja replied, next week. I've already made an appointment. Okay. Dad should be more stable next week. The next day, Yun Yicheng underwent his second surgery. The surgery was very successful. When his condition stabilized, Yun Shishir hired a few caregivers for him and returned to the office. Qin Zhou had taken on many drafts for her. Because of Yun Yicheng's matter, a lot of time had been delayed and piled up. A few investors were getting impatient from waiting. Since the contract had been signed, every day it was delayed was a loss to them. Fortunately, Qin Zhou's public relations methods were in place and smoothed out these investors' hairs. After returning to the office, Yun Shishir threw herself into a hectic schedule. She shot a series of pictorials for an advertiser, then contacted and rushed to shoot 3 commercials. Following that, Qin Zhou hurriedly brought her to appear on a few variety shows. After that, she successfully joined the cast. The script she took on was an urban idol drama. She played the female lead, a genius racer, which was extremely eye-catching because it involved her family's love and hatred. Actually, there were not many stories about racers in the market. It was not that there had not been any dramas or movies about racers, but most of them were mediocre after being released. Racer stories were very unpopular. After all, there was not much of an audience for them. The more famous one in this field was a Japanese comic called Initial D. However, this script was adapted from a best-selling novel and had a sizable readership. Once the novel was published, it immediately gained countless fans. After it was printed and published, it sold more than 100,000 copies a month, which surprised many publishers. When this novel was first submitted, many publishers rejected it with the reason that such a theme was too unpopular. Unexpectedly, this novel was so popular that it made many publishers slap their thighs in anger for missing out on business opportunities. The main reason for the novel's popularity was that the female lead's character was extremely likable. Coupled with the tight plot and clever plot design, it was extremely tense and intense. This was also why Lin Ji fought so hard for it. One had to know that the most important thing for a script, besides the plot, was the character. A dazzling character could become an actor overnight. Back then, Gu Xingzi relied on his outstanding persona to quickly accumulate a large number of fans. The female lead, Han Zhen, was born in a seemingly ordinary family. However, her father was an outstanding and talented racer more than 20 years ago. After winning the Grand Slam, he aroused the jealousy of other racers. During a competition, his car was secretly tampered with. An accident happened during the competition, and one of his legs was crippled. Helpless, he chose to retire, bid farewell to his career, and disappeared without a trace. Chapter 2387. Hence, he trained her from a young age and continued to develop her talent in the field of racing. However, Han Zhen did not have much interest in racing. Even though she had inherited her father's excellent racing genes and was very talented in racing, she had always regarded driving as a tedious task. Until one day, she became interested in racing by accident and found out that her father used to be an excellent racer. In the end, she found out that the father of the male lead she was in love with was the culprit who had caused her father's leg to break. The female lead's character was very likable. She was different from the noisy and silly female leads in idol dramas. She had a calm and collected personality and dared to love and hate. As a racer, she was cool and handsome. However, because the female lead in the novel had short hair, she would have to cut her hair short. Yun Shishir was worried. She had to cut her hair before getting married. Wouldn't she look ugly in a wedding dress with short hair? She hadn't even taken her wedding photos yet. When Yun Shishir first received the script, she couldn't help but feel worried and nervous. She asked Qin Zhou, "I've read the script. There are many drifting scenes. Damn it. I can't do these scenes at all. It's too exciting. Please, we can use special effects for these scenes. What are you afraid of? It's not like you're really drifting. Only then did Yun Shishir feel at ease. However, before they could start filming, they still had to go through a series of training. Some scenes could be done by relying on the camera, while others had to be done by the actors themselves. During this period, many interesting things happened. Yun Shishir sat in the front passenger seat for the first time and observed the expressions, posture, and movements of the professional racers during the race. In the end, after one lap, she screamed the entire time. When she got out of the car, she leaned against the wall and vomited. It was too exciting. The racers they hired were all professional racers. During the training, they chose the mountain roads. There were a few times when Yun Shishir saw that the rear of the car was less than 5 centimeters away from the fence. Outside the fence was a cliff. If the car made a mistake and lost control, it would fall off the cliff. Yun Shishir was so scared that her eyes almost rolled back. Qin Zhou scolded her for being useless. Please. Can you be a little more mature? It's not even your turn yet and you've already fainted. If it's your turn to drive, won't you be so scared that you're foaming at the mouth? Yun Shishir was terrified. It's too dangerous. How about I don't film it? No. Qin Zhou said strongly, do you know how many celebrities can't get this role to film? You were appointed as the female lead because The Green Apple was a hit. If you don't want to act, I'll cry for you. Yun Shishir crossed her arms and said, sure. If you really cry in front of me, I'll act well. Actually, I think it's more appropriate to let Jun Mo act in this movie. She's also a racer. She has short hair and is very handsome. The female lead only has short hair, she's not a tomboy. Jun Mo's image is too much like a man's, it's very awkward to act in a love scene. After a short pause, Qin Zhou said gloomily, are you trying to anger me to death by saying all this? I've never seen you cry before, so I'm curious. Cut the crap. You have to work hard during these few days of training. If you act in this film, I guarantee that you'll be an A-lister. Okay. Yun Shishir said bitterly, I'll act well. That's more like it. Chapter 2388. After a day of training, Yun Shishir returned home and rushed into the study. She pounced on a man who was working and said with a depressed expression, what should I do? Hubby, I have to cut my hair short for the new movie. I'm done for. She wouldn't be wearing a wedding dress with short hair, would she? I've never been willing to cut my hair. Mu Yaja was still immersed in her affectionate hubby. However, when he realized that she had to cut her hair for the movie, he immediately came back to his senses. What movie do you have to cut your hair for? It's an urban idol drama. I'm playing a racer. Mu Yaja turned his head and looked at her suspiciously. You? A racer? Yeah. It's hard to imagine. Why? Mu Yaja said, you're so useless. Usually, when I drive at a higher speed, you get carsick. It's no wonder you're foaming at the mouth when you're playing a racer. Yun Shishir lowered her head awkwardly. Was he blaming her for getting carsick? Yun Shishir shook him and said gloomily, hey, the main point is that I can't keep my long hair for this role. I'm not cutting it. Yun Shishir said, the female lead is supposed to have short hair. The director said that I'm not allowed to wear a wig. Otherwise, it would look too out of place. At the mention of this, she was quite against it. However, Qin Zhou said to her, Shishir, you have to remember that you're an actress. You have to be more professional. We're not asking you to strip naked and run around naked. There's no difference between cutting my hair and stripping my clothes. Yun Shishir said, I've never cut my hair short. What if it doesn't look good? How is that possible? You're pretty. If you don't look good after cutting your hair, you'll be ugly to your grandmother. Don't say such things. Yun Shishir pouted and said pitifully, I'm going to take my wedding photos soon. If I wear a wedding dress at the wedding with short hair, it'll be awkward. However, Qin Zhou was very optimistic. It's okay. Chairman Mu won't mind. How is this possible? Even if you shave all your hair and become bald, you're still President Mu's darling. He'll still hold your face and kiss you at the wedding. Yun Shishir was confused by his words. She imagined herself wearing a wedding dress with short hair. It must be very strange, right? Many female artists also have short hair. They look better than long hair. At least wait until I'm done with the wedding photos. Then why aren't you filming? Qin Zhou waved his hand. I'll approve your leave. When are you going to film? I'll give you 3 days off. She snapped out of her thoughts and heard Mu Yaja say, it's okay to cut your hair short. Don't you think it looks less feminine? Mu Yaja glanced at her chest and shook his head. No. Yun Shishir followed his gaze and it landed on her chest. She blushed and covered his face with her hand to hide his gaze. She said angrily, I'm being serious with you. I'm being serious too. Mu Yaja suddenly put his arm around her waist and pulled her into his arms. He kissed her cheek. It's okay. Even if you cut your hair short, I won't despise you. But I despise myself. Yun Shishir held his face and mumbled, I must be ugly with short hair. Who asked you to take on this show? Chapter 2389. Force yourself on me. Mu Yaja narrowed his eyes suspiciously. Yun Shishir immediately said, Hey. You're not allowed to think that way. Does cutting your hair make your heart ache so much? Yun Shishir pouted and nodded. She stared at him innocently with a hint of coquettishness. Then don't cut it. There was no need to be so conflicted. If she didn't want to cut her hair, then no one could force her. But, the role requires it. The director could have slapped me to death with just that one sentence. Yun Shishir pinched her hair and twirled it around her fingers. Looking at her beautiful hair, she felt that it was such a pity. What a pity. Sigh. Mu Yaja rubbed her hair and smiled. No one dares to touch a strand of your hair. Don't think too much. Yun Shishir was a little puzzled. She asked blankly, why? There's no reason. Mu Yaja raised his eyebrows. His eyes were deep as he smirked and said, I like your black hair too. It would be a pity if you cut it off for a role. Then, am I being a little unprofessional? Yun Shishir mumbled, some time ago, an actress was criticized by the netizens for being unprofessional. What do you mean? She said, it's because there's a popular starlet. When she was filming, she wore contact lenses and the role required her to cut her hair short, but she didn't cut it. Instead, she chose to wear a wig. It was very abrupt and out of place. The netizens didn't buy it and criticized her collectively, saying that her acting was bad and that she didn't work hard at all even though she was getting such a high salary. She was even chewing gum while filming. The entertainment industry was a big dye factory. The market was getting more and more impetuous. Acting was no longer as pure as before. 10 years ago, the fans were very passionate about movie stars and youth idols. In other words, they would unconditionally protect their fans. But now, although most of the fans were obsessed with their idols, they were very rational. Besides looks, the fans also valued character and artistic integrity. Their mentality of chasing after idols had matured. They wouldn't blindly tolerate the bad sides of celebrities. The fans all said that she had such a high salary but acted in such a lousy show. Her acting skills were bad, her character was bad, and her work attitude was bad. Some of the fans especially hated her. Actually, I also think that chewing gum while filming is a bit too much, but those personal attacks are a bit too much. Muyaja said, high pay means high popularity. High popularity means that people will buy the drama series she produces. Sometimes, the public is like this. When they are happy, they will support her. When they are unhappy, they will step on her. Because no matter what they say, they don't have to take responsibility. Yes. After all, the internet was so big. One would not have to bear any responsibility for anything they said or criticized anyone. Chapter 2390. To be honest, I remember there was a movie queen who soaked in the cold pool for an entire afternoon when her period came. Although I feel that this is a way to create hype, if an actress doesn't even know how to take care of her own body for the sake of her work, then this kind of moral kidnapping is really scary. So, I don't think that the actress who refused to cut her hair is unprofessional. Muyaja frowned slightly but didn't say anything. Yunshishir snuggled in his arms and said gloomily, because after all, most young girls like to look beautiful when it comes to long beautiful hair. Who would be willing to cut their hair? Groundless worries. Muyaja grumbled before adding, Qinzhou is just talking about it, he might not really dare to cut your hair. Really? Yeah. Yunshishir suddenly felt much better. She held his face and kissed him. She said happily, thank you for your kind words. If Qinzhou really cuts my hair, You'll what? Yunshishir's face darkened. I'll shave your hair while you're asleep. Muyaja was speechless. In the middle of the night, she stood in front of his window with a razor and smiled eerily. This scene was very scary no matter how he thought about it. Oh yeah. Yunshishir suddenly thought of something and asked seductively, about my dad's case, is there still no news from the police station? Not at the moment. Are they going to conclude it with a robbery case? They can't find any evidence, and the police station is helpless. No matter how much pressure they exert, with their abilities, even if it's really an enemy, they don't have the ability to conclude the case. Yunshishir lowered her eyelashes in disappointment and frowned. Muyaja lifted her chin and comforted her. Don't worry about this. I've already sent people to investigate. I'll send someone to guard the case strictly at your dad's place. Okay. The next morning. Huanyu Building. Qinzhou rushed to the company for a regular meeting as usual. However, just as he stepped into the office and pushed the door open, a tall and slender figure came into view. His eyelids twitched violently. He saw Muyaja sitting at his desk like an old man, casually flipping through some scripts and drafts that had been sent to him. When he heard the door open, he didn't even look up to say, "Morning." Qinzhou didn't know when he had arrived. Qinzhou's scalp numb, and the corners of his mouth twitching a bit. You don't visit a temple without a reason. What instructions do you have for me? Only then did Muyaja raise his head and casually set aside a stack of documents. He then leisurely asked, can't I come and catch up with an old friend? Reminiscing about the past in the company doesn't seem very romantic. Qinzhou ordered a cup of coffee and a cup of black tea. He usually had the habit of drinking coffee in the morning, but he knew Muyaja's preferences very well. He didn't like to drink coffee in the morning, so he ordered a cup of black tea for him. Muyaja ordered a few desserts. He flipped through the menu and said, "You're drinking coffee so early in the morning. You're really carefree. It's a habit from many years." Chapter 2391. However, Muyaja said nonchalantly, everything is going according to plan. There's nothing to celebrate. However, Qinzhou smiled. The coffee and black tea were served quickly. Muyaja stirred the black tea and remained silent. Qinzhou picked up the coffee cup and took a sip as he narrowed his eyes. The two of them chatted casually for a while. Suddenly, Muyaja changed the topic and said, "My wife recently took on a drama. I heard that it's a racer and she's playing a female racer in it." Qin Zhou was stunned for a moment before he nodded. "Yes, the script is not bad. It's an idol drama created by a gold medal team. The original script is very popular. I don't care what role she plays. I allowed her to act because acting is her hobby. I only care about." Muyaja paused and looked up at his face. He said casually, "I heard that you want to cut her hair." Qin Zhou was speechless. He knew it. One would never visit a temple for no reason. This man was a busy man. Why would he come over to talk about old times? It must be because of his wife. As he thought of this, Qin Zhou instantly became alert and explained, "In this novel, the female lead has short hair. Therefore, in order to restore the original script, the director wants her to cut her hair." He threw the blame on the production crew. Qin Zhou completely disassociated himself from the matter. Just because they want to restore the original script, they have to cut her hair. Muyaja was a little displeased. "Don't you know that my wife and I are going to take our wedding photos soon? The wedding is already in the works. Don't tell me you want her to wear a wedding dress with short hair." Qin Zhou broke out in a cold sweat and turned around to play dead. "There's no point in playing dead." Muyaja gently knocked on the table with his knuckles and gave an order. "Don't touch a single strand of her hair. If it's really necessary, replace it with a wig. President Mu, if we use a wig, it will look too out of place. Her hair is so long that the wig won't be able to cover it." Muyaja did not buy it. Since it's an adaptation based on a novel, then it's an adaptation. Naturally, you can change the character's setting and change the short hair to long hair. That doesn't fit the character's setting. Qin Zhou felt wronged. In the original novel, the female lead had short hair, which made her look cold. With long hair, her temperament was a little lacking. Temperament can be made up for with acting skills. Are you still worried about her acting skills? Qin Zhou's lips twitched. "I don't know how to act, but I just want my wife to appear at our wedding in her most beautiful state. Therefore, you are not allowed to touch a single strand of her hair." His attitude was very strong, and there was almost no room for negotiation. Qin Zhou felt helpless. "Chairman Mu, is there no room for negotiation?" "Yes, Mr. Mu." "No." He was used to being domineering and never leaving any way out. He didn't like his woman to suffer any grievances. Moreover, if she really did cut her hair and let the two little lads see it, they would definitely cry their hearts out. Based on this, he would never allow anyone to touch her hair. Qin Zhou felt like crying but had no tears. Muyaja glanced at him sinisterly and suddenly smiled coldly. "If you dare to touch her hair, I'll cut off all your hair and send you to the temple to be a monk." Knock, knock, knock. Chapter 2392. An image suddenly appeared in his mind. He was wearing a long yellow robe and kneeling in the temple. His shiny bald head was full of resentment and despair as he knocked on the wooden fish with a tuck-tuck-tuck sound. When he thought of this, he shuddered violently again and cried out, "Don't! Chairman Mu, you can't be so cruel to me. Wasn't it just a haircut? Was there a need to come all the way here and put pressure on him?" Qin Zhou looked regretful. "So, you can't be so cruel to me." Muyaja continued, "This is an order. You can't go against it." Qin Zhou's eyelids twitched violently. Then, something flashed in his mind and he suddenly thought of something. He chuckled and said smugly, "You have no right to order me around now." "Ha!" Muyaja looked at him with a puzzled expression. "You're no longer the boss of Huanyu Entertainment. So, according to this, you're no longer my superior." Qin Zhou laughed gloatingly. "So, you have no right to order me to do this." This time, it was Mu Yaja's turn to be deflated. He couldn't help but clench his fists and glare at Qin Zhou fiercely. Qin Zhou was pleased with himself again. He smiled coquettishly and said, "As for me, as Shirshir's manager, since the production team has such a request, I have to do it. Moreover, I've already done some psychological work for Shirshir. Her hair will be cut to her ears and it will grow out again in a few months. So, Chairman Mu, you don't have to worry. Isn't it better to focus on the company's matters?" "Oh, is that so?" Mu Yaja suddenly smiled faintly and looked at Qin Zhou meaningfully. Then, he picked up the black tea and took a sip. He smiled elegantly. "Qin Zhou, you win." Qin Zhou replied politely, "You're too kind, Chairman Mu." After bidding farewell to Mu Yaja, Qin Zhou secretly made a victory gesture. How satisfying! In the past, when Mu Yaja was still the CEO of the Mu Corporation, as the boss behind Huanyu, he had always been pressured like Mount Tai. Now that he was no longer Huanyu's boss, he had suffered a setback today. How could he not be happy? Qin Zhou got into the car with a smile on his face. However, 2 days later, he could no longer smile. Ever since Xingyu went public, their financial resources had been constantly expanding. Within a week of going public, they had completed a Series B financing. On the other hand, Mu Corporation was in deep trouble. Many shareholders withdrew their investments and frantically sold their shares. Soon, Dishing Financial Group was faced with a cash shortage. Due to the shortage of funds, many projects were stuck in place. It was as if they were facing losses of tens of millions every day. They could not bear the burden. As a result, the shareholders of Dishing, which used to be incomparably glorious, had no choice but to consider selling some of the businesses that Mu Group had a controlling stake in, including Huanyu Entertainment. At the same time, in the past 2 days, the Xingyu Financial Group had been buying up Huanyu Entertainment's shares like crazy. With its strong financial resources, it had acquired 50% of Huanyu Entertainment's shares at lightning speed. It was obvious that they were going to forcibly acquire Huanyu Entertainment. Chapter 2393. He didn't care much about the entertainment industry and didn't have the time to operate it. After Mu Yaja left, Huanyu Entertainment was like an orphan abandoned on an island, isolated and helpless. 3 days later, when Qin Zhou stepped into the company again, he could not bring himself to smile anymore. After the acquisition of Huanyu Entertainment, he walked into the CEO's office and saw Mu Yaja's name tag on the originally empty desk. His face was so ashen that it looked like it was about to crack open. Mu Yaja came down from the acquisition meeting and sat in his spacious office. Looking around, he saw Qin Zhou push the door open and enter the room. "I think I have the right to order you around now." After he said that, he looked at Qin Zhou's ashen face and said nonchalantly, "Oh, right. I've already invested in the production team. As the biggest investor, I'm sure the director will be happy to accept my small suggestion." He had spent more than 10 million on the production team. The production team was already facing a shortage of funds, so they were overjoyed to see such a wealthy investor come into the production team. Hence, they immediately nodded with a smile when they heard Mu Yaja's suggestion. "Don't worry, CEO Mu. Based on your question, we can consider changing the female lead's character from short hair to long hair. What do you think?" His fawning appearance made him want to kneel down and lick his boots. Qin Zhou was speechless. Other than resentment, there was nothing else to say. Hateful capitalists, the root of all evil. He cursed silently in his heart. You win. On this day, Yun Shishir came back from the production team in high spirits. She was so happy that she was like a little bird. She ran into the study and chirped, "Hubby, let me tell you a piece of good news." She wrapped her arms around his shoulders excitedly and beamed. Obviously, something good had happened. Mu Yaja naturally knew why she was so happy, but he still pretended to be puzzled and asked curiously, "What good news has made you so excited?" "The director told me that the female lead can have long hair instead of short. This way, we just need to do a simple trim and won't have to cut her hair." Yoon Shusher was overjoyed. To be able to keep such beautiful long hair and not have any conflicts with the production team, it was simply too blissful. However, she was too naive and didn't think deeply about why the director's attitude towards her had suddenly become warm and respectful, and why the entire crew's attitude towards her had reversed 180 degrees. How could she have known that her dear husband had secretly bribed the production crew to achieve such a happy ending? Muyaja smiled faintly. "As long as you're happy. This way, I can wear a beautiful wedding dress." Yoon Shusher happily kissed his cheek. Muyaja couldn't help but smile. He didn't hesitate to spend a huge sum of money to acquire Huanyu and spent more than 10 million on the production team. He felt that it was worth it just to get a kiss from her. Muyaja placed his hand on the back of her hand and patted it gently. "Apply for leave tomorrow." Yoon Shusher didn't react for a moment. "What for?" Muyaja furrowed his brows. "Idiot, didn't we agree that I would take you to pick a wedding dress?" "Ah." Yoon Shusher slapped her forehead in annoyance and suddenly reacted. "How could I forget about this?" Chapter 2394. "I'll leave you to your work then. I'll go ask Qin Zhou for leave." With that, she left the study like a happy bird humming a tune. Muyaja watched her leave. He couldn't help but reach out his hand to gently touch the lingering warmth on his face. He couldn't help but smile. However, he quickly regained his serious expression. He took a sip of coffee and turned his gaze back to the computer screen. Yu Yu and Xiao Yichen suddenly pushed open the study door and poked their little heads in. They asked curiously, "Daddy, I heard that you and Mommy are going to pick out a wedding dress tomorrow." Muyaja raised his eyebrows. "Yes, what's the matter?" "I want to go too." "I want to go too." Xiao Yichen was the first to raise his hand to sign up. Yu Yu looked at him disdainfully. "Why are you making such a fuss over this?" Xiao Yichen said matter-of-factly, "Because I want to pick out a beautiful wedding dress for Mommy." "You want to pick out a wedding dress for Mommy based on your taste?" Yu Yu looked at him with disdain again. "You're not reliable." Xiao Yichen pressed his hand to his hurt chest again. He wanted to cry but had no tears. "Yu Yu, are you doubting my taste?" "Your taste is terrible." Yu Yu suddenly said proudly, "Pick out a wedding dress for Mommy is such a sacred task. Leave it to me. So, Mommy and I will pick out a wedding dress tomorrow. You just have to stay at home and mop the floor." Xiao Yichen burst into tears. "No. You're leaving me at home and having fun while I have to do the housework. It's not fair." Muyaja glared at them fiercely. "Stop fooling around. Go back to your room and sleep." "Okay." The two little rascals replied with an "okay" and closed the door. However, Yu Yu and Xiao Yichen lay in bed. The two little rascals tossed and turned, unable to fall asleep. "Yu Yu, yes. What kind of wedding dress do you think Mommy will look good in?" In the darkness, Yu Yu slowly opened her eyes and raised her eyebrows. "Mommy has a great figure. You'll look good in any wedding dress. There must be a most suitable style, the one that looks the most beautiful on the body." Yu Yu had done her homework before, so she knew a lot about the styles of wedding gowns. For example, the mermaid wedding dress was made of satin, organza, and lace. It perfectly performed the unique elegance of the mermaid wedding dress. However, such a wedding dress was the most exquisite. If the figure was graceful enough, it would definitely be luxurious and beautiful. However, Yu Yu was very confident in her mother's figure. She believed that she would be able to pull off this style of wedding dress perfectly. In addition to the fishtail, there was also a chest wrap design. It was a more classic princess-style wedding dress. The heart-shaped chest wrap could show off the beautiful lines of the shoulders and neck. Yu preferred the A-line wedding dress. It was elegant, charming, and not exaggerated. The outline of the skirt was restrained, which was more suitable for her mother's tall figure. It was the style of a socialite, beautiful and moving. The puffy skirt wedding dress is also not bad. It's the most classic style. The deep V-neck mermaid wedding dress is also beautiful. Mommy will look perfect in it. How many wedding dresses did Daddy hire the designer to design? I heard that Daddy asked the designer to design more than 10 dresses. It's enough for us to choose from. I don't think too much. Go to bed early. We have to wake up early tomorrow. Yu said, then go to bed quickly. Don't be noisy. Chapter 2395. Soon, Xiao Yichen fell asleep and entered a sweet dream. Yu, however, was still unable to fall asleep. With his eyes closed, images of Yun Shishir in various wedding gowns kept appearing in his mind. This was especially so when he imagined his mommy standing in front of him in a pure and noble mermaid wedding gown with a gentle smile and charming eyes. His heart was thumping violently, and his heart was surging with emotions. Sure enough, he has a soft spot for mermaid wedding gowns. Yu smacked his forehead heavily and said, "What nonsense are you thinking about? You should sleep early, or else you won't have the energy tomorrow." He closed his eyes, but his little head could not help but let his imagination run wild. He only fell asleep when it was very late. That night was especially long for Song Enya. She lay in bed, tossing and turning, unable to fall asleep. The Muse sent word that Mu Yanqing and Mu Shumin would visit them next week. They were ready to start making arrangements for the marriage between the Muse and the Songs. When Jiang Qiming heard this news, she was so elated that she could not contain her joy. However, even though she had achieved her goal, she was not as happy as Jiang Qiming. She no longer had any expectations for marriage and only saw it as a way to return home. Yes. Wasn't every marriage a way to return home for a woman? It was just that for most unfortunate women, it was a way to return to the end of the world. Only a few could lead to happiness. However, she was not one of the lucky ones. Her marriage was bound to be unfortunate. She would probably be like her disappointing mother and father. When she was young, she had the impression that Jiang Qiming and Song Jingguo were constantly at odds. On the surface, they seemed to be harmonious, but she had seen with her own eyes how difficult and fragile this marriage was. To be precise, her mother and father were united by marriage. Song Jingguo didn't love Jiang Qiming, and similarly, Jiang Qiming didn't love Song Jingguo very much. Marriage was just a way to return home. Therefore, she hated marriage from the bottom of her heart. It was precisely because she knew that a marriage without strong feelings would be a lifetime of sorrow. Therefore, when she met the person she liked, she fell in love with him without regard for her own safety. Only two people who truly loved each other could live happily ever after in a marriage, right? After marrying into the Mu family, she even imagined that she would become a woman like her mother. She would guard such a big home, guard an empty bed, and guard her weak position all the time. Yes, marrying into the Mu family meant a lifetime of glory and wealth. Many people were envious. However, it also meant a lifetime of shackles. She became the kind of unfortunate woman who despised the most when she was young. How ironic. After taking a shower, Jiang Qiming entered the room in her pajamas. She turned on the wall lamp and asked softly, "Enya, are you asleep?" "No." "Go pick out a wedding dress with me tomorrow." "Wedding dress?" Song Enya said helplessly, "Mom, Mu Yanqing and I aren't engaged yet. Isn't it too rushed to pick out a wedding dress now?" Chapter 2396. Song Anya bit her lower lip hard and sneered all of a sudden. Mom, do you get it or not? Look at the Mu family's attitude. They didn't even come to propose marriage in person. They just sent someone to pass a message and didn't even meet me. They're so perfunctory. It's obvious that they don't care about me. They look down on me and treat me like an object, yet you're in such a hurry to bring me to choose a wedding gown. Aren't you being a little too unreserved? If the Muse find out that we're in such a hurry to choose a wedding gown before we're even engaged, I'm afraid they'll treat me as a joke again. Jiang Qiming was stunned. The tip of her nose suddenly turned sour. It was not that she felt aggrieved for her daughter, but she felt that her good intentions had been let down by this daughter of hers. Become a joke. Enya, do you know what a real joke is? Wearing a plain wedding gown to the wedding will make you a laughingstock. Mom brought you to choose a wedding gown in hopes of customizing a beautiful one so that you can marry into the Mu family in a grand manner. This is what Mom can do for you, and I can also support you. Song Anya stared blankly at her with reddened eyes. Now that things have come to this, can I still expect to marry into the Mu family in a grand manner? I didn't marry into the family, I was thick-skinned and clung to Mu Yanqing's trousers. At this point, a teardrop fell from her eyes. Her lips trembled anxiously as she sobbed. I was thick-skinned and clung to Mu Yanqing's trousers to crawl into the Mu family. It's not like you don't know that the Mu family's threshold is not only high, but it's also thorny. I'm covered in scars, yet I still have to convince myself that I'm valued and that I want to be in a grand manner. I'm no longer shameless enough to ask for that. Jiang Qiming was stunned. She looked at her daughter helplessly for a moment. What grand and dignified. It's just for the two of you. Song Anya turned her face away in a fit of pique and mocked her mercilessly. Hearing this, Jiang Qiming's face turned cold. This time, she did not try to coax her but instead retorted, "Is this dignity and glory just for us? Enya, I thought that you would grow up after this incident. But, you keep saying that you're venting your anger and resentment at me. But, why don't you think about it for yourself? Who exactly is the one who caused things to turn out this way? How much did your father pay for you? For the sake of your innocence, you didn't hesitate to use a piece of land in exchange. You shouldn't be so willful. Dad did that for the sake of his reputation and the Song family's reputation." She felt aggrieved. Jiang Qiming retorted, "Since you know that you've embarrassed the Song family so much, what right do you have to say this?" Song Anya was stunned. However, Jiang Qiming had already stood up and sized her up coldly. "Tomorrow, come with me to pick out a wedding dress. If you don't want to go, then you'll have to think of a way to get married." With that, she turned around and left. Song Anya stared in a daze as the door closed and closed. With a bang, the bedroom returned to being empty and cheerless. She clenched her fists tightly, crumpled the bedsheets, and bit her lower lip indignantly. Chapter 2397. Jiang Qiming walked down the stairs and asked, "So early?" Recently, she had been staying at home and rarely had breakfast with her. "Aren't we going to pick out a wedding dress today?" Song Anya looked up at her expressionlessly. "When are we going?" Jiang Qiming glanced at the clock hanging on the wall and said, "It's getting late. Let's go after breakfast." "Okay." After the two had breakfast together, Song Anya set off with Jiang Qiming in her car. Queenstown Bridal Boutique was the most famous bridal boutique in the capital. Queenstown had the world's best bridal gown brands and was the only exclusive agent in the country. The brands it represented included Pronovias, Elisab, Atelier Pronovias, La Sposa, and so on. Moreover, it had gathered the world's top bridal gown designers. It could be said that every bridal gown was handmade and was one of a kind. However, it was precisely because of this that every bridal gown was expensive. They could easily cost hundreds of thousands or even millions. Some even went as high as 10 million yuan. Queenstown's only philosophy was to crown love and give the one who loved it a custom-made wedding. It wanted every woman to be the one and only bride in his eyes. It was luxurious and romantic. Queenstown could be said to be the ultimate wedding dream of every woman. Being able to wear a bridal gown designed by Queenstown and attend a wedding was the dream of many women. Not every woman could have a bridal gown that solely belonged to her when she got married. Song Enya chose this boutique because she, too, had once dreamed of wearing a bridal gown designed by Queenstown to attend her wedding with Brother Mu and become the one and only bride in his eyes. This used to be her dream. Every time she imagined such a scene where she slowly walked up to him in a holy, trailing wedding gown and gently placed her hand in his, her heart would race. Now, this dream had become an ironic, extravagant hope. Song Enya stepped into the bridal boutique and was warmly welcomed by the staff. As a luxurious bridal boutique, the service was naturally impeccable. Soon, the staff led her into the boutique to pick out a bridal gown for her. The hall was very big, a few hundred square meters. It was enough to perfectly display hundreds of wedding dresses. Song Enya wandered along the way. Every gown displayed on the hanger was unique and difficult to replicate, but she was extremely picky about it. No matter how she looked, she did not find anything that she was particularly satisfied with. Jiang Qiming held her hand as her gaze lingered on the gown. Her eyes were filled with amazement. Her taste was not as picky as Song Enya's, so she had taken a liking to many pieces and suggested that the latter try them on. Song Enya, however, shook her head. The one she had picked did not catch her eye at all. Jiang Qiming also felt a little defeated and asked helplessly, "Enya, after shopping for so long, don't you have anything you like?" Song Enya shook her head in disdain. The wedding dresses that the shop assistant showed her were all substandard. The so-called inferior products were either casually designed by designers or custom-made for customers, but the customers were not satisfied with them, so they were displayed. However, the price was slightly lower than those exclusive custom-made products. Chapter 2398. Song Enya, of course, could not pick anything that she was satisfied with. Moreover, the thought that these wedding gowns were leftovers left behind by the customers made her feel that it was very degrading. Seeing how aloof she was from the start to the end, the shop assistant at the side muttered to herself. Most of the brides who came to Empress Town had men by their side. Why did she come alone? She walked around for so long but didn't pick anything. If she disliked the taste of these wedding gowns, she could get a designer to tailor them for her. Although the prices were extravagant, anyone who stepped into Queenstown would naturally be willing to part with the money. Hence, she immediately said enthusiastically, "Miss Song, if you really don't like these wedding gowns, we can go to the next European and American-style wedding gown room." Song Enya suddenly said, "These wedding gowns are probably leftovers left behind by the customers who weren't satisfied with them." The shop assistant looked embarrassed for a moment before she politely said, "Every wedding gown in Queenstown is individually designed and custom-made. Of course, there are some customers who don't have the same concept as the designer, so the gowns created by the designer clash with the customer's aesthetic. These wedding gowns will be displayed in the museum, waiting for women who can appreciate their beauty." That's a nice way to put it. But at the end of the day, aren't they just leftovers left behind by the customers? Song Enya's words were precious, but they were extremely harsh. The shop assistant blushed and felt extremely embarrassed when she heard that. She politely said, "If Miss Song really can't find anything that you're satisfied with, then we can get a designer to tailor one for you." Song Enya glanced at her expressionlessly. Just as she was about to speak, she caught a glimpse of an extremely dazzling light from the corner of her eye. She looked over from the corner of her eye and saw a champagne-colored wedding dress being picked up high and placed in the most eye-catching position. She didn't know what material it was made of, but when she looked at it, it seemed to be glowing. The wedding gown was designed with a deep V-neck. The beautiful hemline of the gown spread out on the floor like a white lily. The most shocking thing was the design at the back. The deep V-neck design completely revealed the charming lines of the bride's shoulder blades and back. At the junction of the shoulder straps and waist, there was an extremely exquisite hand-embroidered pattern. The reason why it was dazzling was because every stitch of the embroidered pattern was inlaid with tiny diamonds. Although they were very small diamonds, each stitch was inlaid with one. Such a large embroidered pattern was probably tens of thousands of diamonds. How extravagant! Song Enya exclaimed inwardly. She could not help but walk toward the gown. Standing in front of it, she stared at it for a long time before her lips curled into a satisfied smile. This wedding dress is not bad. The shop assistant walked over and thought that there was finally a wedding dress that could satisfy this picky master. However, when she followed her line of sight, her face suddenly became embarrassed. She frowned and looked a little embarrassed, but she still praised her appropriately. "Miss Song, you have good taste. This gown was personally designed by Ms. Vera Wang." Vera Wang. Wang Weiwei. Song Enya was, of course, no stranger to this name. Chapter 2399. Her designs would never go wrong on Aslan's Walk of Fame every year. The wedding gowns she designed had once caused a fashion revolution in the bridal industry. A set of Wang Weiwei's wedding gowns was like a noble diamond ring, symbolizing the sacred and precious promise of love. Of course, the price of a wedding gown was exorbitant. It was enough to buy an expensive sports car, yet people still flocked to it like a flock of ducks. Victoria and Beckham wore a wedding gown designed by her at their wedding back then. Britney also wore a top-notch wedding gown designed by Wang Weiwei at her wedding. She even said in amazement, "I've never worn such a beautiful gown before." This showed how influential that name was. Song Enya pointed at it. "I'll take it." The shop assistant immediately became nervous and explained, "Miss Song, I'm very sorry to inform you that this wedding gown is custom-made by Madame Wang Weiwei for a customer, so it's already taken." "What do you mean?" "This wedding gown is exclusively designed by the customer. It's not for sale or display." Song Enya raised a brow in dissatisfaction. "Since you said that it's custom-made, why is it displayed in such a conspicuous place?" "I'm very sorry. It's because that customer is also coming to our store to try on the wedding gown today, so we displayed it in advance to welcome her." She furrowed her brows and bit her lower lip hard. "How much is it?" Question mark. The shop assistant looked at her in surprise. "How much is this wedding gown?" "I'll buy it." "I'm really sorry. Madame Wang Weiwei custom-made this wedding gown for that customer, so it's not a matter of price. Besides, this wedding gown is very small and custom-made. It may not fit you well." Song Enya sensitively retorted, "Are you mocking my figure for not being as good as hers?" "What are you talking about?" "Miss Song, you've misunderstood me. All the wedding gowns here are exclusive and custom-made for the customer. If you're not satisfied with what you saw just now, you can get the designer to custom-make one for you." She suppressed her anger and reluctantly took one last look at the gown before turning to leave in a huff. After browsing through another row of areas, she suddenly took a fancy to a mermaid wedding dress. The fishtail wedding gown was the best way to bring out a woman's unique charming curves, making her look outstanding and elegant. This wedding gown was a classic tube top design. However, the most eye-catching point was the design of the tube top. It was a Sioux embroidery design, and the hemline of the skirt was luxurious and extremely eye-catching. "How about this one?" She pointed at it and asked, "Are you going to tell me that this wedding gown is also taken?" The shop assistant took a look and smiled. "Miss Song, the gowns you see are branded. They are all custom-made." Song Enya glanced at the unique design of the branded goods and crossed her arms haughtily. "Then why don't you tell me which ones I can choose?" The shop assistant trembled as she apologized. She then smiled and said, "Miss Song, please come with me." Song Enya was infuriated. Her good mood had been ruined by the shop assistant, but Jiang Qiming, who was standing beside her, comforted her. Enya, don't be angry. Who knows, there might be a more suitable wedding gown for you. Humph. Chapter 2400. Song Enya snorted and caught up with the shop assistant. Afterward, the salesperson picked out a few pieces for her. Not to mention, even the lowly salesperson in Queenstown had outstanding taste. She was quite satisfied with the few pieces she picked out, so she nodded her head. The salesperson suggested that they change into the gowns. Thus, the few gowns that Song Enya had chosen were sent to the fitting room. Yun Shishir woke up especially early today. Mu Yaja came back early from the company's regular meeting and brought her to pick out a gown. The two little lads woke up early and clamored to go with them. The family of 4 drove to Queenstown. After parking the car, the two of them held the little lads in each hand and stepped into the store. As soon as the 4 of them stepped through the door, a few salespeople came up to them enthusiastically. However, when they saw Mu Yaja and Yun Shishir, they were shocked. Oh, God! Isn't this man too handsome? He's even more handsome than those idols and celebrities on TV. If the bride could marry such a man, she'd be so blessed. However, when everyone looked to her side, they were stunned when they saw Yun Shishir. They were no strangers to Yun Shishir. Wasn't she the popular starlet who had been very popular recently? The one who acted as the female lead in The Green Apple. Could it be, she and this handsome man beside her are a couple? There's gossip. However, it was worth mentioning that Queenstown had received many distinguished clients, so they were naturally tight-lipped about their clients' identities and privacy. Hello. What's your name, sir? Do you have an appointment? Mu Yaja said, my surname is Mu. I've already made an appointment. Mr. Mu. The salesperson was shocked. They had heard of this Mr. Mu before. A few days ago, the headquarters had sent over a dozen wedding gowns. There were a total of more than a dozen gowns, and each of them was the work of the top 10 wedding gown designers in the world. It could be said that this Mr. Mu had actually customized more than a dozen gowns in one go, and each of them was the work of a top designer. This was too extravagant. He was full of heroic spirit. So much so that they all guessed that this Mr. Mu must dote on his fiancée a lot, so he did not hesitate to spend so much money. They were all envious of this mysterious bride. However, it wasn't until he saw the bride with his own eyes that he realized it was her. Hello, Mr. Mu. Your custom-made gowns have arrived. Do you want to try it on now? There's no rush. Mu Yaja waved his hand expressionlessly. He turned around, but a gentle expression appeared on his face. He asked Yun Shishir softly, do you want to pick first? Pick a few that you like. The reason why he had ordered more than 10 sets of custom-made gowns with different designs was because he was worried that she would have a choice if she was picky about her wedding gown. There were more than a dozen wedding gowns with different styles. There should be one that she liked. When Yun Shishir heard this, she suddenly laughed and said, more than 10 sets. Why are there so many? I'm afraid you won't like it. There are more than 10 sets, so there's more space for you to choose from. The eyes of the shop assistants almost turned red from watching. Their mouths were stuffed with dog food. This Mr. Mu was the epitome of a henpecked husband. When he spoke to them, even though he was gentlemanly, he was extremely cold. However, when he spoke to his beautiful wife, he was extremely protective, as if he did not want to miss anything. Especially the way he looked at her, it was so doting that it seeped into his bones. Chapter 2401. Yun Shishir did not notice the envious gazes directed at her from the side as she asked worriedly, then, what if I like all of them? If you like all of them, you can pick out 2 for your wedding. As for the rest, you can choose from them for your wedding photos. Okay. Thus, the group of shop assistants clustered around her and went to pick out the wedding gowns. Yu and Xiao Yichen chattered at the side. What a beautiful wedding gown. Oh, my. Mommy is so beautiful. She can wear any wedding gown with ease. Mommy. The shop assistant was shocked. Madam, may I ask if these two little lads are your children? At first, they thought that they were Yun Shusher's younger brothers. After all, she was so young and did not look like she had given birth before. Besides, they could not believe that a young newcomer in showbiz already had children. This was earth-shattering news. They did not expect Yun Shusher to have given birth to a child out of wedlock. However, they did not discriminate against her at all. That was because she was so elegant that no one could despise her. Yun Shusher nodded. Yes. Yu said sweetly, pretty sister, you must keep this a secret. Little brother, don't worry, we'll definitely protect our customers' privacy. Besides, Yun Shusher seemed easy to get along with. She was gentle, considerate, and polite. Compared to that unreasonable woman earlier, she was practically an angel. Coupled with their professional ethics, they naturally would not leak this news. Song Anya, who was standing in the fitting room, was having her measurements taken when she heard a few familiar voices coming from outside. Her eyes widened in bewilderment. The shop assistant, who was taking her measurements, was enthusiastically saying something when she shushed her. Quiet. The shop assistant was stunned. Then, she heard Mu Yaja's familiar and extremely magnetic voice from outside. This dress suits you very well. Brother Mu. Jiang Qiming heard Mu Yaja's voice as well. Her heart skipped a beat and her face turned pale in an instant. Is that Yaja's voice? Yes. All of a sudden, Song Enya gently pushed the shop assistant away and walked to the entrance. She gently pushed open the door of the fitting room slightly and peeked outside. She saw Mu Yaja holding Yun Shusher's hand. Behind them were two little guys who were looking around. They were seriously choosing a wedding dress. She sucked in a cold breath of air in surprise and covered her mouth tightly. Looking at this scene, tears fell uncontrollably from the corners of her eyes. She had clearly tried so hard to suppress her longing for him, her longing for him, her longing for him, and her hatred for him. However, when she saw him, all of her hatred collapsed and collapsed. I hate him so much. But, she couldn't help but think of him, love him, and miss him. As such, the pain was tormenting her to the point of madness. She really didn't know why she was so persistent in chasing after this man. However, all of this was not sincere. Now, however, he was holding another woman's hand and appeared in front of her so blissfully and unsuspectingly. They were glued to each other like glue, and their love and sweetness stung her heart even more. Why are they here? Are they here to pick a wedding dress, too? Chapter 2402. No one would want the man they loved to appear in front of them while holding another woman's hand. Moreover, it was such a happy scene, such a dazzling scene. Song Enya covered her mouth to stop herself from sobbing weakly as she watched the shop assistant lead them to the gown she had taken a fancy to earlier. It was the deep-necked wedding gown designed by Vera Wang. The shop assistant smiled and said, Madam Yun, this is the work of Master Wang Weiwei. It's tailor-made for you. Take a look, do you like it? Yun Shusher stared at it in amazement for a long time. The more she looked at it, the more she liked it. She could not help asking, can I touch the fabric? Of course. The shop assistant smiled. This gown belongs to you in the first place. If you don't like it, it won't belong to anyone else. Yun Shusher said, thank you. She walked forward, reached out, and gently touched the fabric. Satisfied, she said, it feels great. Song Enya could not stop gasping. So So, this wedding gown was designed by Wang Weiwei, whom he had specially found for her. She then recalled how she had taken a fancy to the gown earlier. Even if she wanted to touch the fabric, the shop assistant would not let her and politely reject her. She suddenly felt that she was extremely pathetic. This wedding gown was just like Mu Yage's, unattainable. Even though they were a few meters apart, it felt as if they were separated by a galaxy. Of course. Yun Shishi's gowns were all exclusive designs. As for her, she only tried on substandard items. The shop assistant led them to the rest of the gowns. Coincidentally, the mermaid wedding gown that Song Enya had taken a fancy to was also custom-made for her. Yu Yu clapped his hands and beamed. Awesome! I think Mommy will look elegant in this mermaid wedding gown. The shop assistant was surprised. Little brother, you know that this is a mermaid wedding gown. Yes. I've done my research on what kind of wedding gown Mommy will look best in. Yun Shishi asked with interest, what did you find out? Yes. Yun Tianyu nodded and continued. The result of the research is that no matter what style of wedding dress Mommy wears, she looks beautiful. Who asked Mommy to be so beautiful? Everyone was amused. Even Mu Yaja couldn't help but smile and say, bootlicker. That's right. Daddy, you must think so too. Mu Yaja said, no matter what your mommy wears, I think she's beautiful. Song Enya felt heartbroken again when she heard that. Jiang Qiming walked over to the door and frowned when she saw them. Why are they here? Yun Shishi, that be *tch, I don't know what she did to make Yaja so concerned about her. Song Enya's heart ached even more as she bit her lower lip hard. She wasn't even in the mood to try on the wedding dress. She could only watch the happy scene between them. No matter how she looked at it, she felt jealous. Their laughter was so happy, yet it made her feel so desolate. She couldn't wait to smash this beautiful scene to pieces. Song Enya gritted her teeth in anger. Unwilling to look at such a heartbreaking scene, she turned around and sat on the sofa. She was so angry that she didn't even have the strength to cry. The shop assistant was a little confused. She went up to her curiously and politely said, Miss Song, I haven't taken your measurements yet. Chapter 2403. It was such a tough job to serve such customers. Song Enya suddenly flared up. What's there to try? What you've picked are all substandard goods. Substandard. What other people don't want, you give it to me. What do you take me for? Am I that cheap? Her outburst really confused the shop assistant, who could not figure out what was going on. What do you mean by substandard? These are all exclusive designs by the designer. It's just that they don't match the aesthetic standards. Some customers are clearly suited for a deep V-neck gown, but they insist on wearing a princess-style wedding gown. They can't be blamed for that. Besides, since she said that she despises these wedding gowns, why don't she get the designer to design them exclusively for her? However, the design fees are high. They can easily cost millions. She can't afford it, can she? She covets the treatment of a queen and doesn't have the life to live. How pretentious. The shop assistant did not know that Song Enya was venting her anger on her. She was just a scapegoat. Outside the fitting room, Yun Shishi was oblivious to the heated situation in the fitting room. After the shop assistant brought them to take a look at the gowns one by one, Yun Shishi looked left and right and was very satisfied with all of them. There was not a single piece that she disliked. However, she did not know if it was because Yu liked it or something else, but she seemed to have a soft spot for the fishtail gown as well. Perhaps, the mother and son's aesthetic standards were very similar. Xiao Yichen, on the other hand, especially liked the deep V-neck gown with embroidery at the waist. Yun Shishi was shocked when she took a closer look. Standing from afar, she felt that this wedding dress was especially eye-catching. She didn't expect that it was because every stitch of the embroidery was inlaid with diamonds. According to the shop assistant, each of these diamonds had been exquisitely cut. Because of this, the reflected colors were extremely dazzling. No wonder. Yun Shishir was speechless. How extravagant. This wedding gown must be especially expensive, right? Hence, while the shop assistant went to retrieve the gowns, she leaned closer to Muyaja and whispered, "Did you get the designer to customize these wedding gowns?" "Yes." Muyaja raised his eyebrows. Seeing that she was worried, he asked, "What's wrong? You don't like it?" "It's not that I don't like it. Isn't it a little too extravagant?" Yun Shishir did some calculations. There were more than 10 sets of wedding gowns. Just the deep V-neck wedding gown alone would cost tens of millions, right? The others were at least a few million, so wouldn't it be over 100 million? Yun Shishir's lips twitched. Muyaja said, "Vera Wang specially designed the deep V-neck for you. Of course, for my mother's sake, it's considered a friendly design. The main thing is that the crafting cost is more, but the design fee is very low." "Your mother?" "Yes." "Does Wang Weiwei know your mother?" "You can say that I'm an old friend." Yun Shishir raised her eyebrows, but she was not surprised. "Wang Weiwei knew my mother before she became famous. They had a good relationship. She also attended my mother's funeral. The white gown that my mother wore when she was buried was also designed by her." While Yun Shishir was still in shock, the shop assistant came over. "Hello, Madam Yun. The gowns have been retrieved. Shall I bring them to the fitting room now?" "Okay. Then please follow me." Chapter 2404. Muyaja said, "Go ahead. I'll wait for you in the living room." "Okay. Take good care of Yu and Xiao Chen, then." Yu said unhappily, "Just take good care of Xiao Chen. Yu is very obedient." Xiao Chen snorted indignantly and narrowed his eyes. "He's only obedient in front of mommy." Yu smiled but secretly stepped on Xiao Chen's leather shoe. The little girl cried out in pain with a contorted face. She hugged Muyaja's waist and complained aggrievedly, "Daddy. Look. Yu is bullying me again. It's useless to call for help." Yun Shishir said with a headache, "If you continue to mess around, I'll asterisk 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 asterisk." The two little munchkins immediately settled down and held each other's hands affectionately. The shop assistant brought a few sets of clothes to the fitting room, and Yun Shishir followed them in. However, when she stepped into the fitting room, she suddenly saw a familiar figure. Song Enya was standing in front of the dressing mirror. Although she was dressed to the nines, especially with her exquisite makeup, she looked extremely elegant as a socialite. However, her complexion was terrible and her complexion was very poor. This was something that could not be hidden no matter how thick the makeup was. Yun Shishir was stunned for a moment. Then, she tugged at the corners of her lips and was a little confused. She did not know why she was here. She had to admit that the huge capital was really small. How could they meet here? But why was she at the bridal shop? Could it be that she's getting married too? However, since she had bumped into her, it would be very ungentlemanly if she did not greet her. She smiled slightly and said, "Enya, what a coincidence. Are you here to try on wedding dresses, too?" "Enya." The shop assistant at the side was shocked. She recalled that her surname was Song and she had a good temperament. Could she be the famous mayor's daughter? In the capital, Song Jingguo was quite famous. As a high-ranking family, the Song family had always been influential in the political scene. In addition, the Song family's daughter was beautiful. Hence, the name Song Enya was not unfamiliar to her. Moreover, as a leader in the wedding dress industry, they came into contact with people in the upper circle. Therefore, they were familiar with any name with a background. Song Anya glared at her expressionlessly before casting a meaningful look at the few shop assistants behind her, who were carrying the wedding gowns. Her lips curled into a half-smile. What a coincidence. Jiang Qiming, of course, shared the same hatred for Yun Shishir. She hated the latter to the core, so the way she looked at the latter was not friendly and even revealed a hint of viciousness. Although she deliberately tried to hide it, the malevolence in her eyes was undoubtedly telling her that she did not welcome her at all. Yun Shishir did not feel awkward at all. She nonchalantly glanced at the wedding dresses beside her and smiled faintly. Are you here to try on wedding dresses, too? He. Enya, are you getting married, too? Song Enya's face turned even uglier. It would have been better if she did not mention the wedding dresses, but the moment she did, she felt even more ashamed. Looking at the wedding dresses behind Yun Shishir, which one of them was not designed by famous designers? What about hers? Although the shop assistant said that they were all custom-made by designers, there were also different grades of designers. The wedding dresses chosen by the shop assistant for her were not designed by famous designers and were mostly mediocre. How could they compare to Yun Shishir's wedding dresses? Chapter 2405. Song Anya's eyes reddened at the thought of this. She bit her lower lip hard and glared at the other indignantly. Jiang Qiming, on the other hand, was indignant that Yun Shishir had overshadowed her. Holding her head high, she said, "Yes, that's right. Our Enya is getting married. Her fiancé is the future head of the Mu family, Mu Yanqing. No matter what, our Enya will be the young mistress of the Mu family in the future. She might even be the matriarch of the family in the future. This wedding naturally has to be a grand one." Yun Shishir thought to herself, I don't care who Song Enya is getting married to, who she's going to be the matriarch of the family, and who she's going to be the young mistress of. Her only concern was that this Missy would not be ungrateful and come looking for trouble with her. Thinking of this, she smiled elegantly and said gracefully, "Oh, then congratulations. You've finally lived up to everyone's expectations and can marry into a rich family." The shop assistant behind Yun Shishir said enthusiastically, "Madam Yun, how about you try on this wedding gown with a deep V-neck first? I think it should suit your aura very well." Okay. Yun Shishir was about to follow them into the fitting room when Song Enya suddenly took a step forward and raised her chin. Wait. Question mark. Yun Shishir stopped in her tracks and turned around to look at her with furrowed brows. What's the matter? Song Enya suddenly approached her slowly until she was right in front of her. She stared at her coldly, her red lips gently curling into a sinister arc. The atmosphere around them turned cold in an instant. The shop assistants at the side stared at them nervously. The two of them faced each other and stared at each other. However, it was as if they were having an invisible contest. Even though they had a tacit understanding and did not speak, the invisible contest of auras between them was already in progress. Song Enya suddenly said, "I have something to talk to this Madam Yun about. Please leave us alone for a while." The shop assistants looked at each other, clearly confused. What is she doing? If Song Enya's expression was amiable and friendly, they would be more at ease. However, no matter how they looked at it, the woman's aggressive manner and dangerous atmosphere made them tremble in fear. "What do you want to talk to me about?" Yun Shishir raised her eyebrows warily. Song Enya laughed mockingly. "What are you afraid of? Could it be that I'm some kind of tiger or lion that will eat you?" Yun Shishir smiled and said playfully, "I'm not afraid. It's just that my time is precious. I have to try on dozens of wedding dresses and choose them one by one. I don't have time to waste on you." These words were undoubtedly a great humiliation and embarrassment to her. Song Enya was furious and could not help but spit fiercely, "Yun Shishir, you're so proud of yourself now. However, I have to give you a word of advice. don't be complacent too soon. Why? Do you think that Brother Mu dotes on you so much now that he will do the same in the future? Hee hee. Compared to him spoiling you, when Brother Mu spoiled me in the past, you were nowhere to be seen. Compared to your doting, Brother Mu treats me with double the gentleness and care. What about now? The current me may be the future you. You're so proud now, but in the future, if Brother Mu abandons you one day, don't be more miserable than me. Oh. Chapter 2406. You're really good at identifying him. The problem is that you're not even worth mentioning to him. Song Anya was at a loss for words. No matter how much he doted on you in the past, he only treated you as a younger sister. How can the two of you be compared? Yun Shishir was very clear about this. Did Song Anya think that she could anger her like this? Ha! For a man like Mu Yaja, the biggest way to dote on a woman was to never give any woman the right to flaunt her power in front of him. She was his first woman, his only woman, and she would be his last. She was also his only wife in name. As her husband, he had never caused any trouble for her. Be it Mu Wanro or Song Enya, his relationship history was clean and there was almost no messy past. Based on this, what was there for her to be dissatisfied with? Actually, he used to dote on you and treated you as a younger sister. This relationship could have been maintained, and I might not have been prejudiced against it. But who asked you to be so annoying and annoying? Now that I hate you, this relationship will come to an abrupt end. He'll cut ties with you for me, but will he be willing to cut ties with me for you? Song Enya's countenance changed again and again at his insistent questioning. When Jiang Qiming saw that Song Enya was a little unsteady on her feet and staggered, she could not help but step forward nervously and hold her arm. Yun Shishir did not back down at all. Instead, she became even more aggressive. You're not important to him at all, so I beg of you, don't think too highly of yourself. Yun Shishir. Song Enya could not help but scream as tears fell uncontrollably from her eyes. Her lips were pale as she laughed miserably. So, since Brother Mu treats you like this, how do you treat him? He's the head of the Mu family. He's glorious and arrogant, but for you, he actually gave up his position as the head of the family and gave up his empire. How willful you are. How could such a proud man give up his position as the head of the family for you? If it weren't for you, he would still be the head of the Mu family with a bright future. It's you who ruined him with your own hands. Is this how you love someone? Don't you think that's too cruel? Haven't you thought about how big of a predicament he'll be in once he falls from his position? Yun Shishir was stunned and pursed her lips. In fact, when she saw that he was willing to step down from his position as the family head for her, she was deeply moved. For such a proud man, he was willing to give up his empire for her. Just based on this, she was determined to accompany him for the rest of his life without any regrets, sharing honor and disgrace. At the same time, she was mentally prepared. Even if he left the Mu family and was no longer as glorious as before, even if he was in deep trouble after leaving the Mu family, no matter if he was rich or poor, she would face it with him. She had once thought that since he had been ostracized by the Mu family and had lost his job, such a proud man would definitely not be able to recover from such a setback. Even though Yu was an outstanding actor and she was able to maintain a decent life with the income she earned from acting. However, such a man would definitely not be able to accept financial aid from his wife and children. However, it was this proud man who surprised him time and time again. Chapter 2407. He told himself all the time that he wanted to give his wife and child the happiest life possible. He had married her because he loved her. He wanted to dote on her and take better care of her. He didn't want her to follow him to suffer and endure a poor and destitute life. A poor couple had to live in sorrow. As a man, he wanted to give his wife the best life possible. He did the same and did it. He had long planned to leave the Mu family, but because of her, this plan had to be brought forward. Fortunately, everything was under his control. Even though there were several critical situations, it was still within his control. Yun Shishir smiled and said casually, "So what? So what?" Song Anya laughed in anger. "Yun Shishir, you're really shameless. If you love a man, you naturally want him to become more outstanding. But not only did you not contribute, you even dragged him down time and time again. If it were me, even if I let go, I wouldn't have caused Brother Mu to be in such a sorry state. What if Xingyu Financial Group didn't survive this time? What if he really couldn't recover from this setback? How can your conscience be at ease? If you're with me, everything will be different. The Songs have the ability to support Brother Mu as the head of the family again. They'll do everything they can to help him take back what belongs to him. Unlike you, you'll only humiliate his pride and excellence. You selfish woman, you don't love brother at all. Is this how you love someone? Despicable. Shameless." Yun Shishir tilted her head and looked at her. She watched as Song Enya tried to humiliate and mock her crazily, as if she could achieve her goal by stabbing her all over. She suddenly sneered. "I've disappointed you. My man is not that cowardly." Song Enya was stunned. Not only did she not fly into a rage out of humiliation, she even looked at her with a pitiful expression, as if she was a pitiful worm. Back then, when the Muse asked him to choose between the Muse and me, he chose me. Perhaps this is the price he has to pay for loving me. But he didn't care, abandoned the Muse, and chose me. What does this mean? Yun Shishir suddenly took a step closer to her and gracefully whispered into her ear, "This means that my status is higher than yours. For the sake of loving me, he abandoned everything, but what about you?" For his sake, she had resorted to unscrupulous means. She had even resorted to artificial insemination in an attempt to bind him by getting pregnant with his child. You pitted him and shamelessly threw yourself at him at all costs, but he still didn't even look at you. Song Enya, I think you're quite pitiful. The man you love so deeply doesn't even want to look at you. Don't you think you're pitiful? Song Enya involuntarily tightened her grip on the drill when she heard that. She took a few steps back and looked at her with red eyes, breathing heavily. If Yun Shishir hadn't mentioned it, she might not have realized it. Only then did Song Enya realize that her seemingly insulting words were not the truth at all. It was an invisible humiliation to him. Every word she said now seemed to be tearing open those scabs. Pus and blood flowed out, and the flesh was badly mangled. Enough. Song Enya broke down and bit her lower lip so hard that it almost tore. Stop talking.